for public participation. Are you all on?
Yes. Can I hear?
Yeah. Kenneth, are you, is that Kenneth on?
Yes, this is Kenneth Jackson, 317 High Rock Road, right?
Yes. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Mr. Rick said he didn't feel like talking.
Oh,
I've got some concerns I need to bring up.
sure.
So they've never really been responded to by the board or anyone else. But first, I'd like to commend our county administrator. He did a great job during the ice storm and other things that's been going on. I'd like to commend him. I'd like to commend our sheriff's department for doing a great job. Mr. Emmerich, I do have a problem with you. We were having a meeting set up, and I know I might not be at the top of your list, but I would have appreciated you calling me and telling me that you had something else to do and we couldn't make that meeting.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
About the dump.
Yes, sir.
And so when you call someone to make a plan a meeting or something, I have things to do too. But if I'm willing to do this, you know, for the good of the county, then I expect that if you can't do something, please call me and let me know. That's rude if you don't. Now, I understand you're busy and you've got a lot of other things to do, but as a citizen of this county, I think we're some of the things you have to worry about too. My concern is Crossroads Community Service Board. And I have kind of do things and look at stuff. In fact, the investigation was even issued a conduct the state police concern. And one of the counties on that Community Service Crossroads Board, we have to be aware that this is our municipal service board for our region and our district. Our tax money is to help our people. So we need to get on the bottom of these nonprofits and stuff and how they're helping us where their money. Got to be on top of that, especially this year. It's also don't think about it or anything like that. When it comes to distributing any funds to any nonprofit this year, you need to distribute funds, funding to the ones that are actually helping the kids. Firsthand. One museum and all them, this is one year they're going to have, we'll go it, we have the shot clinic or vaccine clinic coming, we've got other things down the pipe, and we need every dollar to go in, everything that's helping the citizens of this county. We want service board. They could really use more money so they could hire people to come out for their people. There are a lot of seniors out here. And a lot of people who use it. I know me and Benicia and his mom use it a lot. These are things that are important to us. These are things that would help citizens make it through. Help them get them out better next year. But I'm very concerned about the way we spend our money and the way we speak up for our citizens when we sit on these boards. I know that you're only one member and stuff, but if you're saying the truth and you speak strongly and correctly for the best of the citizens, you will be heard. But we have as citizens, and I'm not the only one with a lot of these concerns. And hopefully when the meetings start opening back up, I really wish we had virtual where we could actually see you on camera and stuff. And we haven't got that far yet, but hopefully we'll come into your 21st meeting. Are you sure you don't want to speak? And Mr. Hicks does want to speak, but I hope that you take these issues seriously, start discussing them. And the other thing too, one last thing is, how in the world is all we get shots if we can? So you gotta understand, I'm 1B. So that concerns me with the pre-existing who jumped over me and got shot, or anybody else, including our police department, the sheriff's department.
We appreciate your concern and we appreciate you calling in tonight. Does Bamici have something to say also? Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
Good evening, Mr. Emmert, and to all the board members. My name is Bamici Hicks from Rice, Virginia. And I haven't called in, my gosh, it's been a long time, or talked with the board in quite a while. I've been really busy. And but my concern is, at this point right now, there's so many things that are not happening in the county that should be, that just being not done. And now I've been back here 15 years since I moved seen one thing that I can give credit to for the citizens of this county so far as moving forward. When I moved here, I was visual at a lot of the meetings and voiced concerns to the board. And I haven't seen one thing coming to fruition in this county since I moved back here from New York. Businesses, just infrastructure, means, in other words, our tax dollars being put to work for the citizens of this county. And I haven't seen one thing yet that the board has done to move us forward in those 15 years. So my question tonight is, what is the 5-year plan? I'm not even going to 10 years and all of that. I want to know what when the 5-year plan for this county so far as was on the agenda, what has been put in action to move us forward so far as businesses and infrastructure for the county. Can anyone answer that for me tonight?
I think the most anyone from the board could answer several of those questions, but Meach, if you had questions in particular as far as infrastructure, I think if you look around, you're going to see.
Well, let me just.
Go ahead, be direct if you'd like to.
Phone service, there's supposed to be deregulation and all of that with the power company and the phone services, and we have choices. We don't have that. We have CenturyLink, and that's about it. Either we have, most of us have Southside Electric, especially out here in the rural area, and that's the only choice we have, which gets their power from Dominion and sell it to us at a markup cost. So that, I haven't seen nothing. I don't see businesses, anything coming forward so far as career opportunities. I see, medium jobs maybe or something like that, but not any career-oriented jobs, and the internet service and all of that. It's terrible here. It's actually terrible. It has not any better in 15 years. That's my point. It has not gotten better. It's gotten worse.
David?
Yes, sir. Jim, this is Mr. Wilt. Go ahead, Jim.
Is there a possibility that we could send this gentleman a copy of the plan that Doug gave us for what he's looking at for the last 5 years, the next 5 years?
I think that Doug
I
has
thought
said.
it was complete. I thought it was excellent, what he was trying to do, and obviously, this gentleman hadn't seen anything like that, so if we could get his email address.
Yeah, if you will call the office tomorrow, Benici, then Doug or someone there will get your address, either your physical address and send you a hard copy, or email address and send you an electronic, as to the same deal that we have. Be glad for you to have that so you can see what the issue is and what the.
That I will definitely give him a call.
Take a look at that and get back with us and tell us if that satisfies what you're looking for, and if not, then please let us know what we can do.
David,
Yes, sir? Go ahead, Bob.
I hear you. That sounds great. Now, one more question I have. I think that was $3 million that was given to Mr. Watson. And I want to know, was that money earmarked for something, or what was the $3 million?
Are you talking about the 3 million in the IDA?
Yes, I don't know what that is, though, but,
Well, that'd be the Industrial Development Authority. That's, Mr. Watson would be on that board, but it was not given to Mr. Watson, just to, so if anybody's out.
aware of him too, for the,
Wasn't given by the way of him either. It was given to the IDA, which he happens to be on the board, just like each one of us that are sitting here tonight are. So it was he might have been the one who actually, quote unquote, was presented the money, but it was not Mr. Watson at all. But yes, that was given to the Development Authority for several things, and you're more than welcome to talk to Doug tomorrow or whenever, and he'll explain any of those issues as far as I know, that there's nothing, anything. Yes, sir, it was given to the IDA, that's correct. But Meach, if you'll hold on just a moment, I think Bobby Jones is trying to speak to an issue. Bobby, can you hear us?
yeah.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Dimitri, as far as the electric companies, you only have one choice. You can't get another one.
yeah, I know that.
Economic
We can get another one. It's just actually done from another level, but we know we can only right now get one.
shut up. I think we see a lot of development in our county. We've got a Rose building out there that is rocking and rolling. And we saw a lot of people.
Daddy, I'm talking about within the 15 years.
Finish, please.
You got a Dollar General, everybody got a Dollar General, that's not, that's not as low grade as you can get.
Well, apparently, I enjoy Dollar General. I go there a lot. So the best thing, if you're not happy with this area, move out.
What?
I'm sorry, but
Look, I'm calling the citizens concerned, and you're telling me if I'm not happy, move out.
That's some of that simple stuff where they used to push you out of town. Are you out your mind?
Are you saying what I think you're saying, Bobby, to me? I'm asking questions about moving forward here, and you're telling me I don't like it to move out?
I'm not trying to explain to you the situation.
Born and raised here,
But
so
you want to
generations of my
me,
family in this county.
listen to me.
You listen to me, I'm the citizen here, and you're telling me I don't like and move out? When I'm a taxpayer here, I have nothing else, Bobby, don't speak to me. I don't want to talk to you tonight.
I don't want to talk to you either.
I don't want to talk to you, I'll handle you another way.
Well, I think you stay over there.
I'll handle you another way.
I'm sorry, board members, is that the way you let board members talk up?
Is that the way you let people, is that the way you let
Did,
our representatives speak to us?
Mr. Hicks,
Moving out the county?
Mr. Hicks, this is the chairman speaking. Did you, by all means, you're more than welcome to do so. Did you hear at the beginning? I'm not trying to override you, I'm listening.
Talk to it that way.
I'm,
I ain't a board member.
I'm asking, I was gonna ask you a question. Did you hear at the very beginning that,
No, no.
Mr. Hicks?
I'm not answering any of Bobby's questions.
I'm not asking a question about Bobby, I'm just saying, if you'll let me speak just for a moment. Did you hear at the very beginning that Mr. Jones is remote? That no one can, I mean, Mr. Jones has a right to speak on his phone or to anyone else. You're more than welcome.
You don't have no right to tell me to move out the county if I don't like it.
He absolutely has the right to. Now, whether he should or not is completely different. But now, if we're going to talk about, then if we're going to talk, hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute.
Asking legitimate questions that being responded to in a civil manner. That wasn't civil.
I'm not going to get into the semantics.
Public all the time, and especially now with being in the public eye and all of this, with my recordings and all that. I deal with people all over the country, and I have never talked to someone like that telling me to move out if I don't like it. What kind of Jim Crow mentality is that? That's an old bird machine that I remember from the 1950s when I grew up here.
Minimum wage job, not helping to make it in this area.
And that is not a democratic mentality. And I'm saying this too. I hope the Democratic leader of this county don't add him in his next election, that kind of mentality, because he's not a Democrat talking like that.
I think,
Everybody's listening to me tonight, understand what I'm saying, because I will be on the newspapers and with the radio about what he just said to me tonight will be publicly made.
that'll be fine. Mr. Hicks, our time is up for the public.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will call Doug tomorrow. I will talk with Doug. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's all right, no problem. Is there anyone else? These are the only two gentlemen that had signed up at this particular time. Is there anyone else for public participation? If not, it's closed for this portion. Any comments from the Board of Supervisors? Ms. Pride?
No comment.
No comment from me this evening. Ms. Patty? Ms. Beverly?
No comment.
Jim?
I'd just like to congratulate the staff for vaccinating 550 people in one day. Took Longwood four days to do 450. And everybody that has called me, and there's been like 5 or 6, they've been so pleased with the smoothness of the thing. So I'd just like to congratulate the whole staff on that.
Jerry, anything from you?
Just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I'll echo what Jim said about the clinic. Thought that was a wonderful idea, and all I've been hearing is positive comments. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your participation.
Bobby, anything from you remote tonight?
No, nothing from me.
All right.
Probably said more than I should have.
That's, well, we're gonna move on from here. Lou is not with us at this particular time, just to let the people out in the audience and wherever know that he's at fire call right now, so he may join us again in a little while, but just to let everyone know that that's the reason why I didn't ask for Lou.
Mr. Chairman, he's en route.
He is en route. Okay. Well, he will join us shortly then. Treasurer's report, I guess all of that is going to be in consent agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, anything to the consent agenda as far as that's concerned?
I got one thing.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Mr. Chairman, page 41, in the minutes, it states that Lou Gillum and I abstained when he was talking about the appropriations. That's need to be corrected.
That's correct.
I think that should have been Lou and the chairman abstained.
That's correct.
Okay?
That is correct.
Duly noted, Supervisor Townsend.
I will-
Other than that, that was, yeah.
Is there anything else? We plan to have that show in the minutes.
Move that the consent agenda be approved.
And I'll second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty Cooper?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bobby? Bobby Jones?
Went back to sleep.
All right, there you go. Yes, yes on the consent agenda?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And Lou is,
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
that's all right. That's all right.
All right.
What page are we on now? Doug,
87, Highway Matters.
page 87. Is that for you? Oh, well, we've lost everything now. Is that you, sir?
Scott's online.
Is he online? Scott? Are you unmuted? Hey, Scott. Scott Frederick with the highway. Give us just a minute. We don't see a picture of him or anything else.
Okay.
Scott, are you back with us? No, yes, it's Scott. We're waiting on Scott.
God, no, I'm sorry.
That's all right, Bobby. Hey, we see a picture of Scott. That's right. Scott, you're muted also. We can't hear you. We just lost you, Scott.
He's still up there in the room.
He's there somewhere.
I think he on mute.
While we're doing that, we're gonna go to Chris while we're seeing if we can get this done. Chris, you got the livestock claim. That should not take so long.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. This evening for animal control, I brought to you a livestock claim. Art and Candy Rowley on Gully Tavern Road had 2 llamas killed. They contacted me. I went out and investigated and did confirm that it was consistent with a canine kill. Unfortunately, I was unable to locate the owner of the canines, and so they did file a livestock claim, which was presented to you all this evening.
I think according to the Code of Virginia, that's for us to pay. Is that correct? We just need a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been properly made and seconded. Almost on the other end. Beverly?
Yes.
Patty Cooper?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ms.
Yes.
Pride? Jerry?
Yes.
Bobby Jones, are you unmuted? Yes. Jim? All right, we're gonna pay that.
I thank you, and also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you all to Ms. Ariel Adams, our newest officer.
How you
Who
doing,
is with us
Mr.
now.
Adams?
Glad to have you on board.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here too.
Thank you all. I hope you all have a good evening and stay well.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, sir. You too.
I'm calling Scott, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we're gonna wait just a minute and see if we can get Scott up online.
Can you guys hear me?
There you go. We got you, Scott.
Okay, sorry about that. I feel like we had a similar experience last month where I wasn't muted on my side, but for some reason y'all couldn't hear me. So I apologize
We're
if it's
starting to
my
think it's you,
inexperience with the technology. So I got a little bit different flavor of an update for you guys. It's a little bit more applicable to the 4 counties that are in our residency because of the ice storm that occurred last month. But I'll start off by saying there's only 11 more days till spring, and we're all excited about that here at VDOT. So hopefully the bad weather is behind us. But we are working diligently to recover from all the damage that we did receive from the ice storm that occurred starting on February the 13th. So anybody that lives in Prince Edward's probably seen our guys out there removing debris. There's a lot of it just in Prince Edward County. We've documented over 7,000 cubic yards of debris that came down and is on the sides of the road. Hurricane Michael, or Tropical Storm Michael, caused us to get very good at doing the documentation side of what it takes to get reimbursed from the FHWA or FEMA. So we're out there documenting everything that did come down. The residency so far for the 4 counties has documented a little over 12,000 cubic yards. So we've shifted some of our forces from Cumberland and Buckingham County down into Prince Edward and Charlotte County so that we have more people where the most damage occurred. So that's helping us get it cleaned up a little bit quicker. We've also rented some more specialized equipment, some rubber tire excavators that can stay on the pavement and reach over onto the shoulder of the road to help load the trucks. With how wet it's been, the shoulders are very soft, so certain equipment can't even get it out there to where the debris is at. So a little bit of a struggle there, but we've adapted and we're making good progress. And then we've also brought on 6 small local contractors that we normally use for snow removal. We've entered into new contracts with them to help with some of this debris removal. So we're going to we have 6 of them, and we have them for 150 hours apiece. So that's 3 50-hour weeks each with those guys. So we're blessed to have that. So we're making pretty good progress, and up till yesterday, we had actually removed, if I'm adding it up correctly, just about 2,400 cubic yards of debris. So you'll start to see those stockpiles. There's one in the median on 460. We've got one down in the Green Bay area on 360, if I'm not mistaken, with 13 of them total. And the landfill is actually an approved site for us to take stuff to as well. So we've been working with Jeff Jones at the landfill a little bit, which has been kind of cool. Well, we had a goal of being done the cleanup before the grass starts growing. So we'd hate to have to battle tall grass around all these tree limbs and trees and stuff like that. So hopefully within about 6 more weeks we'll be cleaned up. That's our goal. So it's just been a kind of a whirlwind, but that's an update on the debris removal. Another topic that was kind of a hot issue in the past is the 307 and 460 interchange. And we've got the traffic engineering is pretty much finished with their analysis, and I had gotten a preliminary report from them on some measures that we could start implementing, but all the salt that we put down made it where the markings couldn't be done on the roadway yet. So I think before next meeting, we'll see some of those markings in place out on 460, and the signs, some of those needed to be ordered. So the signs that they were calling for, I don't think any of those have actually made it out onto the street yet. So I didn't want you guys to think that we had forgotten about it, though. It's very important to us to get those additional measures put in place out there. So I did want to, at this point, I guess, open it up to the board and see if you guys had any comments for me tonight.
I've got one.
Yes, Mr. Will.
I appreciate the way you responded the other day to John Moore. That wasn't in my territory, but you got to him awful quick. I don't know what the outcome was, but he was pleased that you got to him so quick.
Oh, well, thank you for the praise. I'll pass that along to the guys.
Hi, Scott, this is Odessa Pride. How are you?
I'm doing well, ma'am. How are you?
I'm fine. Attention is greatly needed for Abilene Road, not Abilene Road, Bloomfield. As I'm exiting Bloomfield Road, and if somebody is entering Bloomfield for county line, it can be, accidental. That debris is hanging and it's touching cars, it has scratched my vehicles up. Because if somebody comes in with speed, you don't have enough time to slow before those branches are coming into it. So Bloomfield Road needs to be addressed as soon as possible. But I
Okay,
want
so
to
Bloomfield
add-
at the county line road.
No,
and,
it's Bloomfield.
Yeah, on Bloomfield. All right. Well, I wrote that down. We
And-
did, right after the storm occurred, we did what we call protective measures, where we basically just get the road open back up and we
Right.
just push the stuff off to the side. So it sounds like we need to go back out there,
Oh, yes, sir.
push it back a little further until we can get there and actually get it cleaned up. So
But just
I
a
got that
couple-
wrote down. I'll take care of that.
Just a compliment, Scott. Y'all are doing an excellent job. It looks good at what they have done. But if Bloomfield could be addressed, it would be greatly
Okay.
appreciated.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lou, you got anything for Scott on roadways? Jerry?
Other than he's doing a good job cleaning up the
Yep.
mess.
So I
just
know it's
echo
a,
what everyone else said about the debris cleanup. Looks good going down 15 south and north.
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's one of the roads that we've gotten almost finished on 15. So,
We've been working diligently on that.
thank you for your work, Scott.
okay, thank you, board. You guys have a good night.
Bobby, did you hear Bobby, Scott?
Oh, wait, no, I did not. Sorry about
He
that.
said y'all are doing a good job. He appreciates it. Anything-
Oh, okay.
Anything else,
Thank you.
Bobby?
Alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for the praise. We're doing our best with this mess.
All right. We appreciate it, Scott.
All right, you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do we need to go to the, it's 7:30?
Yes, sir, we probably should.
Page are we on there? Tax abatement. Yeah, we fixed it. We fixed it. This one on page 99. with the-
Nice.
99 with the,
Yes, 99.
all right, Robert, you're on cue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, tonight we have public hearing to consider an application filed by Scott Schmeleski on behalf of Hampton-Sydney College for a special use permit to operate an outdoor shooting range on tax map 064-A-45 with an address of 7128 Farmville Road. In your packet, you see the application, the site plan, and their additional information they have provided. This public hearing was properly published in the Farmville Herald, and you have a copy of the adjoining notices that went to property owners, as well as a sample letter, and the tax map which shows this parcel. The Planning Commission held their public hearing back in December on the 15th, and there were several speakers in opposition. At that time, the Planning Commission tabled the application and requested that the applicant hold a test shoot. That test shoot was held in early January, and the parameters of that are in your packet. Myself, county administrator, and additional staff met out with Hampton-Sydney and some residents, and we took decibel levels using a phone meter. I have provided a locational map to show where we took these readings. One was taken at the closest property gate to the shooting itself, which we recorded a decibel level of 48 to 52. Then we went out on Highway 15, and the shot was inaudible and did not register on the decibel meter. We also took readings over at the home of Brian McKay at 7415 Farmville Road, which is across the highway. It also did not register on the decibel meter. The last two locations, at the upper driveway, joint property line of Renee Realty LLC and Janet Worthy Lovelace, the shot again was inaudible. It wasn't until we moved over to Sagebrook Apartments, which is at 8076 Abilene Road, that we did register. It was audible, we could hear it, but it did not register on the decibel meter. I have provided a decibel level comparison chart for what we did record that was prepared by Yale University that details common levels of environmental noise. The Planning Commission reviewed the response from Hampton-Sydney and all of this information at their January 19th meeting, and after much discussion, they recommended approval with conditions that are in your packet. The county has received a number of letters going back to December. I've included all of those in your packet of information, as well as response letters from the Sporting Clay coach and Hampton-Sydney themselves. Based on the findings from the test sheet, county staff is of the opinion that the buffer area is adequate and the use is generally compatible in the zoning district and will have minimal impact on surrounding properties such as noise and traffic. I will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
They could be shooting bird shot and
This is a,
four.
this is a number 7 shot and a shotgun only practice facility only for Hampton-Sydney students and staff. So
Number
it's,
four bird, they shooting bird shot or,
Yes.
Yes.
Number 7, so 7's and
Number
a half and
7.
8.
okay.
Any other questions you might have of me, I'll be glad to answer.
How many shots were fired?
I think this is Ms. Worthy on the phone.
Yeah,
You-
Yes, it is.
Yes, ma'am. What was your question, Ms. Worthy?
How many, when you were doing the practice shooting, how many shots were fired?
Do you know how many shots? Hold on one moment.
We had single shots at first, then when we moved to Highway 15, we shot several shots there, I think about 3. And then we fired 2 more shots when we were down at the joint property line location of Chairman, hold on. Number 4, the upper joint driveway of Renee Realty and Janet Worthy Lovelace. We fired 2 shots there. We fired an additional shot when we were over at Mr. McKay's. But we did have we had some single fires and we had repetitive fire, up to 3 shots.
If my addition is right, Ms. Worthy, around 15 shots.
All right, but that's not what they're gonna be shooting. How many shots are they gonna be shooting at this gun range? How many times? How many times?
At one time.
One at a time. Hold on just a moment. Everyone that's online, number 1, identify yourself, please, as you speak. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that,
Go ahead, Doug.
that the decibel level is going to be based off the single shot. If you can't hear one shot and you can fire 10 in a row, it's not amplifying, making the sound louder. So you're still going to hear them at the level that we heard them on the particular sites at the decibel ratings that Robbie had indicated. It's not going to make it louder.
I think that we have, is Robert Lovelace online? What about Janet Lovelace?
They should be, maybe I should hang up.
Is Mr. Ferguson online?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm just doing a roll call. I know Ms. Worthy's on there, I just heard her. Is Mr. Smoleski, are you online?
I am online.
All right. What about Dr. Stempert?
This is Gary Wall.
Hey, Gary, I'm gonna write you down. Give me just a minute so I make sure I have everybody. All right, is Charles Horton online?
Yes, sir, I sure am.
All right, Mr. Stempert?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're back to the Lovelaces. Janet and Robert Lovelace online.
Yeah.
All right. I guess do you all have some questions for the board? That's my next question to you. Please speak one at a time. I guess it's hard for you all to know who's speaking, don't you?
Ladies first.
Ms. Lovelace, do you or Ms. Worthy, either one, have questions for the board or comments, either one?
I have a comment.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
Sally Worthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when I let Hampton-Sydney buy the land, it was with the intention that there be no guns on that property at all, because boys have put guns, and they had them on campus, in a safe place. Now, I've been on the farm for over 60 years, I've been in Prince Edward County.
and has the farm. And I did let him and Cindy have it for, Ken worked there for almost 10 years. I had a good response with him. I had no problem with him. And I thought they would do right. I mean, I never thought we'd start to do something like this. Now, I have children, 6 of them, and not all of them are coming back. I'm not saying they all are. There are at least 3 coming back up to the farm. Now, that was the family farm. I didn't know, talk about stupidity of mine, and I admit to that, excuse me, hindsight. But I sure would like to keep it in agriculture and have it a family farm. Now, why this young man that's speaking for Sydney doesn't know the whole story, because he hasn't been there that long, I don't believe. But I don't know him at all, and like I said, I've been on campus for many a day over there, like church over there in Hampton. And I'm just totally devastated that they would do this to me. And had I known hindsight, I would have never given in to them. I would have told them to get back to something. And I really don't want to get excited, so I think I'm going to hang up. And you all have a good night. And I'm sorry that you all don't want to keep it in agriculture. And you want to, it just tears me to pieces. That's unfeeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. Ms. Lovelace, do you have something to address the board about? Janet or Robert, do you have something to address the board about? What about Mr. Ferguson?
Yes, I know I am the new party to this. My father grew up in Prince Edward County, and I got 210 in Prince Edward County. So but I'm coming back to Prince Edward County to retire, and I'm building a home at 7622 Farmville Road. And if my caretaker wouldn't have notified me that this sign was placed, I don't know that I would have known about this at all. But and I want to just say up front, I am a gun advocate. I've been on sporting clay courses. I enjoy sporting clay courses. But when I chose to build my home and my final home, and for my children and my kids and my grandkids, I never imagined out on my acreage, 100 yards from Highway 15, that I would be dealing with a situation like this. I mean, I've also had friends. I have personal friends who graduated from this college and institution. I love this school. And I have great reputation. It's amazing. But I'm sure scratching my head on this deal as far as understanding. Surely, with all the property that the college has in its inventory, they could select a more remote location and put in a sporting clay course in close proximity to churches, residences, the Highway 15 itself, let alone the waterways and things. I mean, I'm very familiar with these types of places, and have friends that have even set these places up. And so, and as far as the audibility and the inaudibility of shots, there are multiple shots that are going to be fired off this place. Tonight is the first time I learned it was going to be staff instead of students.
All right, Mr. Ferguson, I'm going to ask the board if there's anyone on the board that would like to address anything that you've said. Hold just a moment. Go ahead, Robert.
Mr. Chairman, I want a point of clarification from
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ferguson. This would be the staff, meaning the sporting clay coach, not general Hampton City staff. It will be the staff that's supervising the students.
I understand. Did that clear up anything, Mr. Ferguson, or is there still a question there that needs to be addressed?
Now, it's more a comment than a question being addressed. My question, if I'm asking it correctly, I want to know how long and this firing is going to be going on at these ranges, and was that level of activity detected in this registration of audibility and inaudibility.
All right, let me answer one of those questions. I just got the two fingers, which I think means approximately 2 hours. Is that correct? How many days a week? We're gonna let Robert address this right now, if you hold on just a moment.
If you look at the supplemental information, Chairman, that's spelled out, and look at the conditions, if you'll hold on one second.
Sure.
Let me get to that page. Practices will only take place during daylight hours on weekdays during the academic year and will not exceed 2 hours in duration. Now, Mr. Horton is on the phone and can address this. There will not be multiple shots fired at a single time. You will have a clay pigeon or skeet fired in the air, and it will be a single shot, and then the next student would fire their shot.
I think.
That's 2 hours per day?
2 hours per day.
I think, first of all, to dispel a few of the things that people are maybe understanding or not understanding, and I guess it depends on whether you've shot skeet or shot on a sport and clay team or sport or anything else. I actually shot on one when I was in high school, was team captain, so I know a little bit about this, and it's only one shooter at a time. So it cannot be more than one shot fired at a time. Now, it can be a shot and a shot if you're shooting doubles, or if you're shooting triples or whatever else, but it would only be one at a time, which is the only thing that is possible to begin with a shotgun. So just to dispel some notions. Are there any
Sir,
other?
Can I get a clarification?
Absolutely.
On this? You're not defining a sporting clay course. Sporting clay course is basically golf with guns, okay? And you go to multiple stations, usually 12 to 14. So can you
This is, we're not talking about a sporting clay, we're talking,
defining skeet and trap, or are we defining a sporting clay course?
it is a skeet and trap from what I understand.
And you're only gonna have one person shooting at a time?
That's on a skeet team, is that correct, sir? That's a,
This is Charles Horton, I'm the coach for.
yes, sir, go ahead, Mr. Horton.
Yes, sir, yeah, so right now, basically, to get into the technical details of what we're proposing, basically talk about putting a high stand course out there. We refer to ourselves as the sporting clays team, just because that term kind of encompasses all of the disciplines, and we do compete in all of the disciplines. But basically, the facility that we are proposing has, like a standard 5-stand. We might vary some of the target angles and everything, but, yeah, we're talking about basically one shooting station happening at a time. We're talking about 2 hours a day for no more than 2 days a week. So if you do the math on that, it ends up being about between 1 and 1.5% of the time. So almost 99% of the time, there's no shooting activity to be occurring. The team right now is too small, it's only a dozen guys, usually we don't even take fellas. And shooting, as Mr. Love mentioned, shooting 5, 7.5 bird shot, the report was not even audible outside Route 16, which I do believe is the same distance as the property.
Does that answer any questions for you, Mr.?
Can I just clarify, sir, what you just said? You said 5 to 6 shooting stations with 12 shooters?
No, sir. What he said was a 5-stand, which means that there's 5 positions that you walk through to shoot one at a time. Is that correct, Mr. Horton?
Yes, sir, that is absolutely correct. It just means there are 5 different safety stands from which shooters can shoot, and one of them is shooting at a time.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Ferguson? There is a difference.
Yes, sir.
There is a difference between a skeet range and a trap or a sporting clays. I do agree with you, but this is set up as a skeet range. They did use the word sporting clays because that kind of encompasses the whole gamut of the way it's described in our politically correct world.
Okay, and then again, I apologize to the board for being new to this, but as I understand it, with doing research for this call, do I understand correctly that there was a previous location recommended for this project and that it was turned down, but I never heard what the reason was?
That would be correct, that there was an area out towards Verso area, and they did not have enough distance. That's the reason why it was turned down. There was not enough what they consider safety space or safety zone, as it's called in the sporting clays or skeet range, or however you want to classify it. That's the reason why it was turned down. This particular area, and I'm not saying how anyone's voting either way, but this particular area has more than ample room, and that's the reason why they have chosen it as their coming to the board, I guess. Any more questions, Mr. Ferguson?
Well, yes, I did notice, I wanted just a couple comments and then I'll close. A couple comments was that noise alone, again, with constant gunfire, regardless whether it's 2 hours, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 1.5%, 1%, affects businesses and residences, and especially if I'm out on the property with my grandsons and granddaughters run around this property. I have looked at the scatter pattern information that I've been researching and different types of stations that are gonna be there, and they're going, obviously on different patterns, you're shooting at different places. So I'm assuming someone's done the scatter pattern. I'm assuming someone's done the environmental on this, because I did see a couple blurbs early in the information that showed that they made a special point of saying that it was gonna be steel shot. Very nicely done, so that it eliminates all the environmental issues that would come up in a project like this. But I do have to tell you, when I heard about it, I was very, very disappointed that with all the property that they have, that this was the location that they chose in a residential and business district. And I'll give up the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Lovelace. I'm sorry I couldn't respond earlier. I couldn't get it off mute.
no problem. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, supervisors, if I may speak to you for just a minute. I understand completely that you being asked to make a difficult decision tonight because Ham Sidney has requested your approval to create that gun range, and they acknowledge it's going to generate impact beyond their property boundaries. And their neighbors, of which Mr. Ferguson is one, and we're another, and the Worthies, the McKays, and Gary Womack, without exception, every one of them have perceived these impacts negatively. So you have to decide, to have Sydney's property rights, one landowner, that they admit is going to generate negative impact, have precedence over the property rights of all the adjoining landowners around them. Now that gun range is going to generate sound that's quite honestly perceived as noise, and their test, they say it's minimal. But the actual gun range, they're talking about 150 shots per session. That's not the same as a half dozen shots in a test. So their test doesn't simulate the reality of the proposed operation. Let me just draw a real quick analogy.
Mr. Lovelace, let me interject here for just a moment, because there's some untruth here. What was said by Robert when he tested the noise, one shot is what they tested. That is the only decibel, no matter what. Regardless of the number of shots, it will still be the same decibel no matter what. It might be multiple times, but it cannot increase or decrease the decibel. That's just a fact. We can't argue that. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I understand that. So let me draw an analogy here. I'm going to detour for about 30 seconds.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
I had a colicky baby. And one day Janet spent all day trying to get that child to sleep. And late in the afternoon, I came home and I said, "Hey, dear, I'm home." Whereupon the child woke again and began to cry. And of course, I tried to tell you I wasn't very loud. But Janet said, "Unwanted sound is noise. You woke the baby. You were too noisy." Now, likewise, Hampton Sydney is sending their test saying it's not too noisy. That's not their decision to make. The decision belongs to all of us, the neighbors. I acknowledge their private property rights, and they have used their property for their archaeology classes for years. And nobody's ever objected to their use of the property for archaeology classes. But when they create a gun range, it's gonna disturb Gary Womack's cows on the north, potentially impact the water quality of the McKays, because Cindy sent you all the things, and they can't even get steel shot. So they're gonna be putting lead, which is a hazardous waste, out there.
All right, hold on a minute.
Generate unwanted noise.
Wait a minute, Mr. Lovelace.
Southeast and west.
You're, number one, your 30 seconds is up, but let me once again dispel some things that are not true here. There is more non-toxic shock than just steel. There's also bismuth, there's also tungsten, and that's just to name two more. So let's just make sure that we absolutely stick to the facts, because I'm a stickler for that. So we can't say,
Chairman, you have more knowledge, I'll concede, but they haven't committed to anything like that.
nor have they not. So let's not skin the cat yet.
Yeah, well, have they not?
Is there anyone else that would like to address? I hate to tell you, Mr. Lovelace, but your 30 seconds is up.
Okay, this is Janet.
Janet, go to it.
I grew up on the property.
I know who you are.
We're discussing this evening, Janet Worthy Loveless.
Yes, ma'am.
My question. Okay, I have now retired, and I look forward to building a house on that property that my father, Ken Worthy, and I selected for my retirement. I had no idea when I said I'm going to retire to the fields and forests of Farmville, Virginia, my hometown, that I would have to be up with a gun range at this time. I don't know what it, and I'm from an academic environment. I'm a retired library director. I want to know that academic, it seems to me, that school year goes on for, we have summer school, is that correct? There'll be no shooting during summer school, is that correct?
From what I understand in the board packet, that is correct.
Okay, so you're telling me June, July, and August, Mr. Ferguson, Warwick, and the McKays, we all need to know this. We are hearing in a board of supervisors meeting that in June, July, and August, there'll be no shooting. And that will, I would ask my supervisor, who represents me, make sure that is please put in that letter.
Hold on one moment, and
I want to address Mr. Ferguson. There was a gun range on the property years ago, and incorrectly, Hampton Sydney identified it as where they are putting this gun range.
all right, hold on, Ms. Lovelace, hold on just a minute. Let Mr. Horton speak to the issue of the months that it will be. No, it won't. I haven't called time on you yet. Just give me just a minute. All right, Mr. Horton?
Yes, sir, yeah, we don't anticipate, practicing during the summer. My knowledge, our team never has. We're talking about practices during the regular academic year, which are, the end of August, beginning of September, until, typically April, minus your fall, winter, and then Easter break. So, basically it's restricted to that time. A lot of weeks you won't even be out there because, like I said, the guys have, exams or they're on break. And things like that.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Horton. Ms. Lovelace, does that answer your one question?
Well, I would say that should be in writing somewhere. That was, I would hope my representative of the Hampton City District would make sure that it's please included. I don't know about this proposal. It seems it's missing a lot of things.
Okay.
Like hazardous waste. There's no such thing as safe hazardous lead waste. It doesn't exist.
Ms. Lovelace, I'm not gonna hold on just a minute. I'm not taking your time, but let me once again reiterate the same fact that I reiterate, or that I spoke to your husband. We can't talk about that because we cannot prove that they're gonna use lead because there are non-toxic shots. So we can't address that issue as a board until it's presented to us. So that's moot at this particular time. All right,
Okay, so
your time is, you still have time. Go ahead.
I'm going to assume that before any action is taken on this, we will know what type of shot will be used and what type of mitigation is planned in using that shot. I'm going to assume that there will be some type of abatement program listed in presented again to this board, that there would be procedures and abatement programs.
I think that,
Also,
go ahead.
you know, there's a continuous, I will investigate myself, this noise, pollution, myself, and the number of shots. I will look at that, as you would know, a librarian would investigate that.
Sure.
I would suggest that you read the best management practices for, and I know, David, you're not sure, Mr. Chairman, what kind of shots they're gonna use.
That's
There's
correct.
Lots of EPA recommendations for the type of shot allowed, so I'm hoping that we will see something like that. I will tell you that I respectfully request that the Prince Edward Board of Supervisors reject the special use permit for a gun range.
Ms. Loveless, I do want to let you know that it is in part of their special use permit. It's actually on our packet, it's page 116. Number 3 says practices will take place only during daylight hours on weekdays during the academic year and will not exceed 2 hours a day in duration. So yes, that would be part of it, and it is in writing. Any more questions?
Academic year was not, you know, I know they have summer school over there, so academic year was unclear.
I understand, but by all means, ma'am, we can play semantics the rest of the evening, and that's going to be, if it gets down to that, I guess that would be between a judge and a jury, but it's certainly not up to the Board of Supervisors to pull legal advice from that without having some legal counsel. So therefore, I will take it.
I understand, I just want to make sure everything is clear.
I
That
understand.
has nothing to do with judgment calls, that is clear and precise language. So all parties are aware, and we know what we're talking about. Explicit definitions, not legal terms, but just so we're all clear on what the situation is. It seems a few other people are unclear of the terminology as well.
I understand.
So I think that things need to be very clear, and this has to be looked at very closely. And I ask that the Board of Supervisors of Prince Edward County please reject this at this time for further investigation.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board?
I'd like to address the board. This is Scott Schmolowski of Kansas City.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'd like to say that we have done all of our due diligence out there as far as test sheets, the buffer zones. I respect Levels's as well as Bonnie Ferguson's input on this, but property is well set up for a shooting course. You set up an operation that will operate minimally in terms of the days and times to be out there. We will not be out there this summer. The times to be out will be limited to the academic year with full supervision of qualified coach. And so, therefore, we provided all the information out there, and adjacent property owners, the company, all that stuff here. This is not only a concern of yours, the concern of able to that's all the police, all comfort, all the noise level. And I would,
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address before I call the question? All right.
yes,
Go ahead. You made it in.
okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Gary.
I'm good. I don't know. No, maybe eight. And I don't know what here. Back, I'd play. I've heard, but that's it. Not gonna agree. But it wasn't that last. But we have stuff that
I understand that, Gary, and I appreciate your comments and your time. Is there anyone else? Go ahead. All right, at this time, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And everyone, you're,
This is, if you have time for just one more, this is Charles Horton, the Hampton City College.
sure, Charles, you got 1 minute.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to reiterate the college's intent to be good neighbors with this entire program. We tried our hardest from learning first of the neighbors' concerns, to talk to them and explain everything as fully as we could. And in fact, have that to the neighbors, Mr. McKay, who is an alumnus of MCD, talked to him when we were doing the range demo for the planning commission. He said that it wasn't a concern. We also talked with Mr. Ray Chanel, who lives to the north of the proposed site. He said that it wasn't a concern, so it wouldn't bother him at all. And we actually got in contact with Mr. Tom Worthy, and I corresponded with him, and we came to what I felt was the amicable agreement. Basically, we're just promising to be good neighbors and conduct ourselves as organized and respectable as possible. And I think that there are no houses that are within the area where we're talking about that the noise was really even louder than rustling leaves. So really, I just wanted to say that
Thank you, Mr. Horton. I have to cut you off, and we'll be true to my word. I gave you a minute. I appreciate everyone's comments. You're more than welcome to stay online and listen to us talk about this. I'm not gonna call for the question just quite this moment, but I'm gonna close the public hearing. Public participation, I guess. I'm gonna open it up to the board and just ask the board kind of what you think before we make a vote. As you can see that there's some, adjoining landowners that are not happy about it. There's some that just don't really care either way. There's probably some that just haven't said either way. So I'm gonna open it up to the board, and then I'm gonna make a comment or two myself. So it's open to the board.
I have some comments.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have spoken to some people from Hampton City, and to my knowledge, it is legal to fire guns in the county area of Prince Edward. The only place that you can't fire your gun is in a posted area, and the people that own the property can fire their guns even in a posted area. I think that the planning commission has done a yeoman's job on this. The way I understand it, they looked at it and they tabled it because they had questions. And they brought it back again and put some restrictions on it, and then they passed it, and they recommended it to us to pass. And from that standpoint, and from talking to Hampton City, I think we should approve it.
Any more comments?
And I'll make a motion to that point.
All right, you want to,
Discussion.
Jerry, you were in a somewhat similar situation when the one at Verso. Do you have anything that anyone has said there, or any comments either way, really?
Well, my only, it's a tough decision. I mean, when you're a property owner, I mean, you want to enjoy your home and your property, your leisure time. And one of my concerns when it was about to come in, when it was opportunity to come out in Verso, was the noise level. I mean, either the decibels, as far as the sound, but when you hunting and hearing, and you firing weapons, you're gonna hear that gun. Now, the meter may say one thing, but that gun, you're gonna hear it. So, again, you had property owners that relocated, retired, and they wanted to enjoy their time at their home and relaxation. And I know personally, when I sat on my front porch and I could hear the weapon being fired from 633 across to 634. I didn't like that.
But there's nothing illegal about it.
Nothing
That's right.
illegal.
That's right.
Okay, totally. You're exactly right. Nothing illegal like that. But I do feel like property owners had deserved the right to enjoy his or her property in peace.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else got anything? Lou, you got something?
Just a couple little comments. My son being involved with Hampton City College Fire Department, on several occasions, some of the young men have come to our home, our farm, and had practice. Of course, where I live was quite a ways off the road, but at no time did I ever get a complaint. And this was actually on the weekend, usually when they did it. And they really conducted themselves very nicely with the weapons. I have two young grandchildren, one 8, one 3. They were interested in what was going on. They took time to talk to the children. Of course, they're very young. But overall, the noise where we live wasn't even an issue, wasn't even thought about. Number two thing that crosses my mind, and I know a few of these people, some of them I don't, but just my curiosity from sitting here listening, do any of them hunt? Have people to hunt on their property? You know, that's another question I'd like to have answered. Do they allow people, hunt clubs, to come on their property? To me, that's no difference than having a practice for 2 hours and then somebody deer hunting down on the creek, But that's just me, thinking about different things.
I would like to know, why Bobby voted no in the planning commission.
Bobby, are you online? When we get him back, we'll ask him. Patty, do you have anything in particular to say? Ms. Pride?
No, I just want to say that basically all of the people that have talked and presented, those constituents have called me. And I must say, it's just not about sound. There's a lot to the cultural aspect, a lot of history with the families there. And, I can understand, I've talked with Dr. Stempert 2 or 3 times, so I can understand really from both ends.
Bobby, can you hear us? Can you unmute and answer a question? I guess that's back up to me before I call for the question then, and I said I was gonna make a comment. Go ahead, Jerry.
Can I ask one more
Sure,
question?
absolutely.
Has the college looked at any other properties as an option, another alternative location?
I cannot answer that. Mr. Horton, are you still online? Say he is not. Mr. Horton, if you would unmute and just tell us, do you know if question came from the board, is there any other place that you all have looked at?
Hey, David.
Hey, Bobby, go ahead.
Okay, let him go first.
Go ahead, is Mr. Horton?
So you need to star 6.
Mr. Horton, can you star 6 maybe to unmute? I can't. Can you still talk to us? While we're waiting on him, Bobby, Beverly just said, did you vote no in the thing? And if so, was there a particular reason? Was there something that you saw or didn't see or something?
Well, 2 of the people that were told that were in favor of it, previous speaker, are not in favor of it.
Okay,
Landowners next door to it.
I got you. Okay,
That's kind of what pushed me toward that direction to vote.
I got you. That was just a question. Mr. Horton, one more time, are you online? While we're waiting for him to maybe come back on or get with us, like I say, I'm just gonna make a couple comments because I've actually, I don't know how many hours I have spent in the last couple weeks listening to pretty much everyone that was on this list and had some of the same conversations as I've had tonight. And, with the exception of possibly one of them, I guess I either know every one of them or know their parents or something of the nature very, very, very well. So it's kind of a two-edged sword for me, but I will tell you that I'm a property rights person, as probably most of you all know. If you know anything about me, I believe if you own a piece of property, that if it's legal, you should be able to do it. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote, but you probably can do some guessing. But I don't mean to be rude or anything else, and I've had this conversation with the former owners and just said that the only way that we can control land is if we own it. And once we sell it, we give up our rights to control it. So I would like to know who that is, because you're more than welcome to call me on my phone and talk to me rather than just talking trash on this, sir. You're more than welcome to call me out, but this isn't the place for it.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Scott Schwartz.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, listen, I think David Morgan has been muted. Do you check if he's got him muted? He's trying to.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Scott, I think they just unmuted us, I believe. Can you guys hear me?
Sure. Is that Mr. Horton?
Yes, sir, it is.
Mr. Horton, the question was, I've forgotten what the question was now, to be quite honest with you.
No location.
Other sites.
Has there been any other sites that you looked at?
Yes, sir. To answer the question of whether there have been other sites that we've looked at, the answer is yes. As it was noted before, we submitted a permit application for different property. It was about 20 minutes from the college.
No, we're talking about property that the college owns, was the question. Is there any other college property that's owned by the college that you all looked at?
Oh, no, sir. We determined that this was the most optimal place because this is basically where we have the proposed range going, is basically as far as possible to get from residences, or, the most unobtrusive place that we were able to find.
Okay, that's.
Property.
I appreciate it. That answers the question. The question was just asked if you all had looked at any other college-owned property. So I appreciate that. Go ahead, Bobby.
I've had quite a few people pass through that too, so I don't know which land Hampton owns, but I think they own the right amount. But if they want a shooting range, put it next to the college and annoy the people there, not, hey, that's not her.
Sure, I understand. Well, at this point, I guess we will just call for the question and hold on just a minute.
You had a motion by Mr. Wilk, we need a second.
I was going to say, we're going to go to the question. I'm going to second it to go to the vote, and then we can just go from there. So the motion has been made and properly seconded. I guess a yes would be to pass it, a no vote would be for it to not pass. And I'm going to start with Ms. Pride. Ms. Pride?
Abstain.
Ms. Pride abstains. David Emmer is going to be a yes. Go ahead, Ms. Patty Cooper Jones.
Yes.
Beverly?
No.
Jim Wilk? Bobby Jones? Jerry Townsend?
No.
Jim? Yes.
4-3-1.
That's a 4-3-1. That's a pass then.
Yes, sir.
Passes 4-3-1. All right.
And again, Mr. Chairman, to clarify, that was
That
with
was-
the conditions
that
that were
was-
recommended by the staff.
Yes,
of the Planning Commission.
that was with the conditions which you have in your board packet, or if someone that's online would like to see the conditions, we will be glad to make it available to you to know what the conditions are.
I'm welcome to read them if you want me to. You don't take time. You're good.
So what's the outcome?
It is a yes. It is a yes. All right, at this point, do we have another? No.
No other public hearing, we go back to Ms. Morris. Just patiently
Roma,
waiting.
come on.
Gracious. I hope mine will be pleasant.
None of them are pleasant. What are you talking about, Roma?
Y'all leave keeping me up past my bedtime.
We'll try to let you be short. Then we'll go on.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Glad to be here. I somehow missed last month. There was a confusion there. I didn't know I was supposed to be here, but I'm here tonight, and I'm glad to be here. The county administrator had asked me to speak a little bit about our financial situation at Department of Social Services. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Roma Morris, and I am the director at Prince Edward Social Services. We just got our most recent dashboard, which I gave you a copy of, which I think is interesting, but we have been through some real interesting times in the last year, as everybody has. We have had to change the way we do things in many ways because of COVID, but we have never closed the office during this time. We have, with food stamp and Medicaid and TANF eligibility, we contact people by phone. We are able to do interviews over the phone and to verify through our computer systems, to verify income and resources and that kind of thing. And we have been able to maintain our caseloads. And if you look at this dashboard, you will see that our SNAP application process timely is 100%. Our Medicaid is 100%. Our TANF, which is our money assistance program, is 100%. So kudos to the workers that have shown up every day to get these applications done. And the other part of that is caseloads are high because of COVID, because people are without jobs, because people need food stamps, because people need Medicaid and money assistance. So caseloads have been very high, and the workers have been there to maintain the work. The other part of it is the service side with child abuse, foster care, adult services also. We have to make home visits. We have to see these people. And we are mandated by law that we have to have face-to-face contact with abusers, with neglectors, with children. And our workers have done it. So again, kudos to them. One big thing that I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for is the approval of the $1,000 bonus that our workers received the 1st of January. I can't tell you how that helped morale in the office because, a lot of times they're working nonstop and and even though I tell them thank you and their supervisors tell them thank you, it's nothing like money. And so that money has gone a long way to say thank you to the workers, and I appreciate that. So, take the time when you have some extra time to look over this dashboard and look at what our workers are doing with both sides of the house with benefits and services. As far as money, I understand that there is a 5% COLA suggested for state employees and county employees for July. I hope that, and I know that you will consider that strongly for our workers, for our county employees. One other thing is that the state has approved a 20% increase to our social workers' minimum salaries and a 15% increase to the benefit workers and the administrative staff salaries, minimum salaries. It really doesn't affect Prince Edward so much because we deviate in class and comp. So our workers are already up to the 20% above what the state's minimum salaries are and the 15%. But the good thing for the county is that with that approval, now the county will be reimbursed that money that's being paid out. So the locality will benefit from that raise in minimum salaries. So I'm trying to think of, with rent, The county administrator did the memorandum of understanding, and we had almost 18 months of back rent to pay. So we have paid most of that. I think we have 28,000 or 20-some thousand left to pay, and we should pay that. We should make that difference up by the end of our fiscal year, which is May 30th. So we should be up to date with rent, back rent, by the end of our fiscal year of May 31st. And then we'll just have our regular monthly rent there forward. If you look, I don't know if Doug, do y'all have a copy of the, of what our budget lines look like in your packet or not?
I don't believe we do.
Our annual budget runs around 3 million. Most of that money is state and federal money. The local share is a little over 600,000 per year, 630 to 650. So, you know, we have remained steady with that over the last 3 years. And for our coming up budget, with rent paid now and up to date on that, we're probably going to hold pretty steady. I don't know of any new workers coming in that we would have to raise our budget. I would like to say that there's going to be a retirement and a payout June 30th, because I will be retiring June 30th. So that'll be a payout. And then the eligibility manager plans to retire in June of the following year. So there's two pretty big retirements coming up as far as, you know, sick leave and annual leave and that kind of thing paid out. But other than that, I don't anticipate any big expenses other than what we do day to day. So that's basically all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Mr. Chairman, a couple comments if I could.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How many years with Department of Social Services, Ron?
41.
You started when you were 10, didn't you? That's right. Just want to thank Roma, one, for leading the department through COVID and all they've been dealing with, and two, during a recent ice storm, we were needed to open our shelter at the Pefia Gym, and your staff helped us man that. We didn't actually have to stay open overnight, but you were prepared to do so, and we appreciate the efforts of your department to make sure that the citizens of Prince Edward were covered and that we had that option available to them during that time.
Yeah, and I think we worked really well. Sarah and Trey were on the ball with this. They worked tirelessly for several days and nights with this, and we just kind of followed directions. So I think we worked very well together and covered people's needs. There weren't a whole lot, but what there were, we covered them. So I think it worked out well.
Any questions from the board?
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roma, for what you've done for us. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Where are we at, Doug?
All right, we are down to Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Cook.
Randy.
Wake him up over there.
That's right, I'll blame him.
Come
Anywhere
on
you
over
want
to
to, anywhere you want to, Randy.
past his bedtime.
Y'all are running up my electric bill.
That's right.
The snow removal that we did this year, I thought went well. Our snowplow did have to have some repair on it. It broke down just before their last event, so we had to put a new motor and controls on it. Watts Industrial helped us with that, and we did some pre-treatment with their salt that we had around the courthouse, and I think that helped us out tremendously to keep things passable for the sheriff's department and those who needed to access the courthouse. After the ice, we got the compactor repaired at Darlington Heights. We've had to remove the sewer pump from the Manor sewer station, one of them because it had water in the seal. That is being installed and being repaired, and we hope to have it installed in the next month. The town of Farmville helped us to pull that, and we'd like to thank them for that, and hopefully they'll be helping us reinstall it. Bill Caldwell and his crew had the equipment to do that, so they helped us with that. The cannery boiler is scheduled for an internal inspection on March 24th to fill out those regulations. We've had several roof leaks that showed up in our shredded roof during the snow, and we've got a contractor coming to look at that to see what we can do to get that repaired. At the landfill, we had replaced the leachite pump sensor. Mike Odom is coming with Commonwealth Engineering, is bringing us a control board to complete that repair. In the Pefia building, exterior doors and the generator transfer switch should be here soon, hopefully installed by mid-March. The sprinkler inspection was done today. We should get a report on that soon, and they will start in the next few weeks to bring that back up to code. We had the building cleaned and had staff available for housekeeping services during and after COVID clinic, and we're going to keep that going on. We've monitored the Lockwood Place about every 2 weeks, and more during extreme weather conditions to make sure that's working all right. We fog in the courthouse on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings for COVID disinfection purposes. I'm scheduling to meet with a representative with Glow Lighting to get information on installing some UV lights in the public waiting areas of the courthouse. The flat roof over here on the courthouse was finished this week. The paving and sealing contracts for the parking lot were received and awarded to Virginia Paving and Seal Coating, which is Puckett Construction, and they received that and should get it back to us soon. I talked to them today. Our air quality testing was done in the courthouse. We had a good report on that. They suggested a deep cleaning of the health department area, which was done by a service master and completed on March 1st. We hired Martha Jones as a part-time housekeeper to help clean the courtrooms and help fill in when other staff are taking time off. We will be interviewing for a maintenance worker this week. The door and card key to the Sally Port are complete. We have trimmed the shrubs to the judge's entrance. The canopy is at Grant's Glass, and we're trying to get that scheduled to be installed. We had the windows cleaned in the atrium area, and I think that looks better. The table and chairs were replaced in the visiting judge's chamber. The carpet is currently being installed in the hallway and Judge Blessings and Allison's office. Lee Hartman was contacted about the quote for the security camera and the entrance locks to the clerk of the court suite, and they're waiting for parts still, and he said he would give them a call and see if he could hurry them up, even if you had to tell him he's got to get another vendor to get parts for it. So we've received several bids in replacing our chiller for the budget, and we need to look at those. We had our air handling unit fail this week, and hopefully a bearing went out. We'll get that repaired Friday. We've received several bids on a new phone system because, ours is old and failing, and really Doug and I just need to sit down and go over what we've got to make a comparison. And we've also received a price on upgrading our internet here from 50 megs to 1 gig from Segra, which is our current provider, and that should be installed in the next 60 days. Price is not going to change, though, on that.
What's the price on that chiller?
Chillers are running from, I think it's like 189,000, so it is, Doug, to 200?
Yeah, and we haven't selected a vendor. That's going to be probably a project for next budget year, but that's one we'll have to put out to bid, Jared, to make sure we get a good price. If you know any vendors, let us know and we'll include it.
I'm interested in one for the jail.
We got to use what we can sell you.
Any other
Buy them in
questions?
conjunction, you might
Randy?
get a better price.
If not, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching up on some of those details.
All you're doing, and it takes a good old farm boy to do that.
Good job, though.
Thank you, Randy.
Good. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of things. One, and I told Randy, look at the budget for next year. I think we've got one more vehicle to replace. We're going to look at trying to get a second plow so that we have a backup plow in place when those incidents do happen. And between Jeff and Randy, we're looking to possibly try to include at least the lease purchase of a skid steer. Some of the jobs, whether it's grading a convenience site or snowplow removal here in our parking lot, something that'll turn a little better on a radius.
We get a lot of use out of that in many areas.
I understand completely.
Jalen can't use it.
Thank you, Randy.
All the ravines around them.
That's right. What do we got next? So, the SEC,
Yes, sir.
you want to give us the,
Yes, sir. So item number 13, which is page 137. Prince Edward County, the majority of Southside Virginia were hit hard by an ice storm on February 12th, 13th of this year. At one point, all the 3,827 customers of Southside Electric in Prince Edward were without power. I say customers because that's meters, that's not people. You can probably use a factor of about 2.5 to come up with population. Power was not ultimately restored to all customers until February 27th, a duration of 14 days. The board and staff have received numerous complaints that Southside was not prepared and was slow in their response to the storm event and restoration of service. I will give them a shout out for what they, were able to do with forces they did have. I think it was more about the duration of the event and the fact that so many of our folks were without power. From emergency preparedness, we tell people to be ready to be out of power for about 3 days. And this was certainly unprecedented. As the State Corporation Commission has oversight of their operations, we've drafted the attached resolution requesting the SEC conduct an inquiry. You may have seen in the newspaper, I believe, 2 days ago, SEC is going to do an inquiry. Obviously, we drafted this 2 weeks ago, but I still don't think it hurt to go ahead and make the formal request. There's no cost to the county. Obviously, if there are any findings and costs that come out of the findings and recommendations, it'll be borne by the members or the users of the cooperative, of which the county is a member. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think we tried to be comprehensive. And again, we're not point and blame. We're just saying, hey, let's review their response and planning so that next time we're better prepared and our citizens hopefully won't have to go through something like this again.
Absolutely.
do we need a vote on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jerry, you're making a motion?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the attached resolution requesting that the State Corporation Commission of the Commonwealth of Virginia conduct a formal inquiry into the preparation and response of Southside Electric Cooperative for the ice storm and subsequent power loss.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, been properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty Cooper?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby Jones? He's got to unmute. Jerry?
Yes.
Jim, yeah. Go ahead, Bobby, now we got you.
Okay, yeah.
All right, and Lou?
Yes.
All right, unanimous, so moved. I think the next thing is our,
Purchasing
Purchasing
policies. And so, and believe me, it's I know it's a voluminous document. And the reason it's voluminous is because we're trying to pull all the different pieces of state code into one document, everything that talks about procurement. It really boils down to, if you look at pages 8 and 9, I've got a few copies here. Jerry, if you can pass those to Lou and Jim. It really boils down to pages 8 and 9. It's a 2-pager, and I'm passing those out. But the draft purchasing policies for Prince Edward, the county's current policies were adopted in 1985 and simply state that any good or service in excess of $10,000 requires competitive bidding and negotiation. I'll be the first to say in my 3.5 months here that we don't always follow that, in that, obviously there are things that we have to buy sometimes that aren't put out to bid that we may get written quotes for. And I think that's been standard practice and been going on for years.
Section 2.2-4303 of the Code of Virginia states that all public contracts for the purchase of goods and services shall be awarded after competitive seal bidding or competitive negotiation. Bless you.
Thank you.
Code allows for localities to adopt procedures for small purchases which provide for competition where practical. So the county in 1985 adopted a policy, anything between 500 and 10,000, you can get quotes in writing. Anything over 10 would go out in the newspaper into a public bid. And under 500, you didn't have to go through that process. What's being recommended is that anything 5,000 or less, competition is not required but encouraged, approval by the department head or designee. $5,001 up to $20,000, you would get solicitation of 3 more bids by telephone or in writing with the low bid confirmed in writing and approval by the department head, finance director, and county administrator. From $20,001 to $50,000, solicitation of basically 3 bids in writing, approval by the Board of Supervisors ultimately. Then anything over $50,000 would have to be the public notice. That's the thing, article in the newspaper or on the website, and go through the formal bidding process and, of course, approval by the Board of Supervisors. So it would basically move up the authority of the county administrator up to $20,000. Makes things, because we meet once a month, makes things go a little bit quicker. But it also sets the guidelines clearly as far as when you get bids in writing, when you get bids orally, or if you have to go out to bid. You also have professional services. Again, anything over $20,000 has to go to the board. And then exemptions. You have there's sole source. There's a lot of public contracts that we can piggyback on, including EVA for Virginia and a couple of other entities as well. And also legal services, competition is not required, would not have to go out to bid unless the board wanted it to. The long draft was developed from a number of other localities, including Fauquier County, Virginia. The document, again, is long because it pulls together all the various code sections into one document for use by staff. There are lots of provisions that the average person, I'm talking about like a Randy or a Jeff Jones or a sheriff or a commissioner of revenue, is not going to spend the time to try to dig out. And here it's all in one document. This two-pager is really what most people use on a daily basis.
Didn't that go before the finance committee?
It went to the finance
Y'all
committee.
good with it? I mean, I read it very thoroughly.
Yes.
I think it's well written, and that's where we need to be.
And Terry has reviewed it as well.
Yeah. So,
In that case, and I call for,
so I move that the board supervisor adopt attached purchasing policies, make them effective immediately.
is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly made and seconded. Lou?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bobby? Jim?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Jones? Yes for me. Mr. Pride?
Yes.
All right. Losing it, sorry.
I'll
Well
jump.
written.
I'll go right on. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'll jump on to the next one. Item 15 is capital improvement program. And of course, tonight, one of our public speakers, they were asking about what the county's plans are for facilities and such. Hopefully, this will help address some of that. And we kind of got into this a little bit at our Finance Committee joint meeting with the school board last week when talking about schools. But the county is one of the recommendations I have. We need a 5-year capital improvement plan, and it needs to be updated at least every couple of years. Capital improvement plan is intended as a guide to assist the board in the development of the county's budget. The CIP process will begin with the submission of capital expenditure requests from county departments and associated agencies in May. The Planning Commission, by law, is designated as being responsible for putting together the capital improvement plan. They'll evaluate the requests using a list of 12 criteria that I put together. They're similar to those used by the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, used by other jurisdictions for evaluating capital projects. They help to provide some objectivity to the process. The commission, using these scores, will determine a recommended priority for the various requests. Representatives of the departments will be invited to comment. Planning Commission will hold a public hearing, make the recommendation to the board, and then the board ultimately will hold a public hearing on it.
The CIP is advisory. Just because it's in there doesn't mean you have to spend the money. But it lets you know what the needs of the community are moving forward, and that helps us with the budgeting process. So things that are non-recurring should have a useful life of 5 years or more. The estimated cost of the expenditure must be $50,000 for general government, $100,000 for a school project. So a police cruiser is not going to be in the CIP. Now, mainframe computer system could be. But it's going to be the larger items. And those are things that we want department heads to plan out. If you need a roof replacement 3 years, let's put it on the plan. If you need to replace 2 CAD stations in the 911 dispatch center, let's put it on the plan. And that way, we have a good view of what the needs are coming up. So this, I've got an attached schedule behind it. I've already planned, Robbie's got it on the agenda for me to talk to the Planning Commission next week, assuming the board approves this, and we'll get started. But I'll be talking about that process with the commission next week. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Even more on the fact we need to do this, because we have not kept our capital improvement plan up in years. We're really do it.
Is that a motion, Bobby?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second being made and properly seconded. Lou?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Jim? Beverly?
Yes.
Yes.
Me, yes, and Ms. Pride?
Yes.
I am. I've lost it.
Going on number 16, Mr. Chairman, is a request for tax exemption. We've got a request, the Archaeological Conservancy requests that parcel 35A10C be exempted from local property taxes pursuant to section 58.1-3651 of the Code of Virginia. The Archaeological Conservancy states they're a private national nonprofit organization that acquires and permanently preserves important archaeological sites across the United States. They own sites in 5 other localities, 5 counties, including Loudoun, Lee, Prince George, Dinwiddie, and Richmond. The property in question is known as the Prince Edward Soapstone property, 12.21 acres, and it's on the it's on the backside of a county landfill. Request was made by the Archaeological Conservancy in 2014, and the board turned down the request as it had not approved such a request in the past and was worried about setting a precedent for similar requests in the future. Staff would again caution against approving the request. It's not a big dollar amount, it's $125, but undoubtedly would open the door for similar requests. I'm sure, Beverly, we've got a lot of nonprofit-owned property in this county. Once you start down that road, I've seen other localities in that list, maybe 50 properties on it. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
My feelings on it are, we're talking $10 a month, and I think that's not an onerous amount for them to pay. And I kind of hate to open the doors to other people. I think that's potentially a lot more damaging than worrying about them paying $10 a month.
If there's no other discussion, is there a motion? If not?
I'd make a motion to deny the request.
Second.
Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty
Yes.
Pepper?
Yes.
Beverly? Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
There you go.
Next item, number 17 on page 157, it's a request from the Buckingham Cattlemen's Association for a letter of support of their request for the Tobacco Commission for $125,000 in funding for improvements to the barn facility in Buckingham County, which were allowed to be designated as a disaster emergency location for the community and livestock. A copy of their request is in the packet, and looks like they're trying to put a generator and some other equipment in the building. It's no cost specifically to us.
Retrofitted for emergency?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll move that the board approve the request to send a letter to support that.
Bobby, second. All right. Lou?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bobby? Jim?
Yeah.
Beverly?
Yes.
Patty Cooper? Myself, yes. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
All right.
It's an uncost and run down.
That's right. That's exactly right. A little wrong. All right. I'll wait for Cheryl. She have anything for us?
Yes, sir, she's coming.
There we go. That's all right. Take your time.
She's multitasking.
She's about to say.
agenda, I'm sorry.
So I'll talk real fast anyway. As you have heard, we have interviews next Tuesday for the Buildings and Grounds person. We have a heavy equipment operator position open. We have our truck driver position open. And we have re-advertised the finance director position. So that is our latest and greatest. And you heard, we heard Martha for the housekeeping position, and we're making progress.
Have you had any, have you had some applicants for some of these, you said?
We have.
Good.
We have, actually, we have applicants for all of these.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
So, and we've had people say that they want to apply for some of these jobs too, so we'll hopefully get some more applicants.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Bucket.
She's been quiet tonight, hasn't she?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Mr. Pyle was here with us earlier, but as Supervisor Gillum can attest, there was a rather bad fire in the southern part of the county, so I sent him as the fire chief to the fire. I told him that I would man the fort for emergency management updates tonight. We have two reports to share with the board. One is your almost 1-year anniversary of COVID. I regret to say, it was almost a year ago that the first declaration of emergency was done by the Commonwealth and the federal government, and ours soon followed.
Thank you, ma'am.
It has been a busy month in Prince Edward County. The combination of COVID and ice storms. As most of you know, I've been with the county for a little over 3 decades. And I will say, yes, started when I was 10. Thank you. Madam County Attorney. So I will say that the combination of COVID and the ice storms brought about all kinds of new challenges, and I think that the ice storm planning, response, and recovery was probably one of the largest events or incidents in my history with the County of Prince Edward in terms of serving our citizens. And you know, I stand here before you, having been here for so many years, to tell you that we are so blessed with the communities, with the volunteers in this community who have really stood up. And I've seen it, you know, I'm going to say more in the last month just because of what the community has faced. And it has really shown all of us in emergency management with Prince Edward County, the team of Doug, myself, and Trey, how blessed we are, because obviously 3 people or even the combined county staff, you know, it's a job beyond the bench that we have, and what we accomplished for our citizens this last month is really largely attributable to the citizens that live here who were willing to stand up, and that includes a tremendous number of Longwood and Hampden-Sydney students who, even though, you know, they are a part of the community and we see them, they really made themselves a part of the community this month and helped us on many levels, both with COVID and with ICE. So I'm going to run through COVID very quickly and hit the high points, and then I'll do a quick summary on ICE as your final report to our recovery from the ice storms. So with COVID, our case count currently is 1,979. The thing that we are excited to add to the ongoing COVID report, as we brief the Board of Supervisors, is actually a section about vaccines. As of today, there were 3,477 first shots have been administered, 5,375 total shots, and a total of 1,904 individuals are fully vaccinated. Now, this is data off of the state website, so I gave you the state website citation. I will tell you that for some reason, there's a math error there of 6 people or 6 shots, and I don't know where it is or why. But somewhere, people or vaccinations, it's off by 6. But you will see that we have significantly increased over a month ago. So that is the good news. If you flip to the next page, this is where I'd like to spend most of the time. And this is all about what we call the hashtag Vaccinate Prince Edward updates, which are the county's updates on our specific website with that website address. So as you talk to citizens in your district, if they're asking questions, if they're asking for updates, if you direct them to hashtag Vaccinate Prince Edward, on a weekly basis, the staff is working with a core of community nonprofits and also letterpress communications to try and keep our information current so that our citizens can go one place to try and find information. So very quickly, for those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet Dr. Adekoya, she has been here now a little, maybe 2.5 weeks, and she is moving at a rapid pace to bring our district up to pace with the rest of the Commonwealth in terms of vaccinations. She finds a way to say yes, and she brings with it all of the energy, enthusiasm that we had hoped that she would bring, and she is remarkable, and I hope that you each have the opportunity to meet her soon. And when you see her, you will wish to thank her for how much she has accomplished in the short time that she has been here. And that includes, as Mr. Wilk pointed out, our very successful March 5th clinic, where 519 vaccines were administered to Prince Edward County and Farmville residents. All of those individuals were on the pre-registration list with the Virginia Department of Health. Just about every clinic, and you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again, every clinic is by appointment, and it is imperative that every citizen in Prince Edward County pre-register on the Virginia Department of Health website. If they need help, if you identify a constituent, a family member, somebody who you go to church with, a neighbor, whomever that needs help, we need to get their name and telephone number, and somebody from Farmville Cares will reach out to them and help them through the process. But this is the one and only way to get a vaccine, and it is the best way to get a vaccine. So, that's the one thing, the one takeaway is every citizen, it's not too early to pre-register, no matter what category you think you may be, no matter where you think you're going to be on the list. Go ahead and get on the pre-registration list with the Virginia Department of Health. There is both a login that you can do online, or you can call the 1-800 or the, I think it's the 877 number, which is listed there midway down the page. The follow-up clinic to March 5th will be April the 2nd, and Dr. Adekoya has already announced that if we could successfully do 500 on March the 5th, we will do 1,000 on April the 2nd. I would like to give a special shout out again to all of the volunteers with Farmville Cares. Those were citizens of Prince Edward County. Those were Longwood students, Longwood employees, It was a great turnout. We couldn't have done it without them. We also had a student nursing class from Southside Virginia Community College. Those young people, most of them had never given a shot before, and by the end of the day, it was remarkable. I mean, they were pretty nervous, needless to say, at the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, there was a lot of pride, and you know, and I think, you know, just having accomplished what they did, and so they are coming back on April the 2nd, as is the second class of nursing students with SVCC. So if you have a chance, want to mark your calendar, want to drop by, see how things are going. I know Mr. Emmert came through the clinic as a patient and got his vaccine. So feel free to come on out and see everything that's going on April the 2nd. Just if anybody asks and you're looking to direct people, CVS is administering vaccines. They open their portal maybe once a week, but you got to get up early. I think it opens at like 5 a.m. Those appointments open, and they, needless to say, they fill fast. But that's again a very efficient process. Walmart is conducting regional clinics tomorrow and Thursday at the Pefia Gymnasium. They plan to do 1,200 vaccines between tomorrow and Thursday. They're administering the Pfizer vaccine, so in 3 weeks they'll come back to do the second dose. Hampden-Sydney College is now working with the Piedmont Health District to conduct some community vaccination clinics through the Hampden-Sydney Volunteer Fire Department. So as soon as that information becomes available, it will be made public. But again, those names will all be drawn from that VDH pre-registration list. And Longwood is working through the administration of the second doses to all of the teachers, I believe, in surrounding counties. So vaccinations are moving. We expect to see a significant increase in the number of vaccinations in the coming weeks. It is still limited right now, but please encourage everyone to pre-register. The second message that I would ask that you share is that any vaccine and every vaccine is better than no vaccine. There's a lot of debate about this vaccine versus that vaccine versus whatever vaccine, 1 shot, 2 shots. Every vaccine is better than no vaccine. So at some point, people may have the ability to pick and choose, but for people that are vulnerable, encourage them to get the soonest vaccine, because that would be the best vaccine. I'm going to have you flip over on page 6. We have added the February EMS agency call counts for February 2020 and February 2021. And then I just want to call your attention on page 7 that under public information, the county has engaged the services of letterpress communications to assist us with public information and strategic messaging regarding the COVID vaccination process, and specifically health equity. We are very concerned about people who do not have access to the internet, because a lot of the messaging is social media or email or electronic. So we are working, the county staff is working for a mailer that will go out to every residential household in Prince Edward County, laying out the process for how to pre-register. And that way we are assured that every citizen in Prince Edward County knows how to do it. And there is no citizen in Prince Edward County that is left out of the process. So with that, if nobody has any questions, I will jump. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, why is Nottaway so high as far as hospitalizations and deaths?
I have no idea specifically, Mr. Wilk. I would say that perhaps it may be the age of the individuals that have been impacted by COVID in Nottaway County, but I don't track them, so I don't really know factually what that answer is, but I'm happy to ask Dr. Adekoya the next time I speak with her, if she,
Well, it's just
yeah.
curiosity. I mean, like, for a while, we had the prison here that was a problem. Other places that had nursing homes that are a problem. And I was just curious.
Yes, sir.
Sarah?
Yes, sir.
Our new road signs that we got placed around through the county, can we put advertisement on their website, contact for the vaccine or a phone number?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We most certainly can. Let me make a note of that. I will also say that we certainly owe a debt of gratitude to the board of the Prince Edward Farmville Youth Association. Their willingness to enter into the partnership with the county last fall for the purposes of an emergency shelter and the investment that the CARES Act Committee chose to approve, and then the Board of Supervisors, it really put us in a position to be ready to pivot, from warming shelter to COVID clinic pretty quickly. And as Randy pointed out, he's continuing to work. He's done a really good job of making the improvements and getting the building prepared for, what we are able to accomplish now. So quickly, I'm going to run through the ice storm. Just to remind the board, the contribution that the volunteer fire departments make during the 24-hour period starting early on the morning of February the 13th and running through February the 14th, the 7 volunteer fire departments in Prince Edward County ran over 200 calls for service for trees down, wires down, and I will tell you that doesn't happen in most counties in Virginia, and it affords the citizens of Prince Edward County a level of public safety, and the support that they provide to VDOT ensures that the state roads in Prince Edward County open a lot faster than some of our neighbors, because the volunteer firefighters go in and either, cut it out of the roadway and push it out so that, passage is available. And in this case, because of the severity of the storm, it really helped the electric companies be able to get in and get down the roadways quicker. So, as always, our volunteer fire departments and the contribution they make to our citizens is really undervalued or underknown when you think about how many man-hours those 200 calls took from all of those volunteer firefighters during that 24-hour period. Roma talked a little bit about the sheltering and the mass care. I would like to point out to you that the YMCA has been a tremendous partner for many years in opening their facility. And during the ice storm and power outages, they welcomed 247 citizens of the county that were non-members to come in and use their facility and use their showers. So that was a real benefit to our citizens. Meals was the big lift for the ice storm. And without the volunteers who delivered and helped distribute, the volunteer fire departments, Hampden-Sydney College itself did 2 nights of distribution. All totaled, if you read through all of the meals, the Red Cross provided 2,600 meals. Dominion Energy, we were quite blessed, and I think got lucky and were in the right place at the right time and met the right people. And as they were demobilizing and had made commitments for food in their, logistical areas around the state, they were willing to donate it. So we just kept saying yes. And in fact, they had their caterers, one from Williamsburg and one from Richmond, actually drive back to Farmville and deliver all of the food that they had contracted for that they were not going to use because they had restored power in those areas. So they ultimately donated over 3,000 meals in various forms. Some of them were prepared, some of them were cases of frozen pancakes and muffins and nabs and snacks. And I mean, it was everything that you could imagine that they would have fed their linemen and their crews, and they ultimately donated it to us. We were fortunate we had the cannery and were able to store and manage the distribution. And then the last opportunity that presented itself that we took advantage of was that through the Virginia Emergency Operations Center, we were able to order 1,685 boxes of non-perishable food that were just distributed last week through FACES, Farmville Cares, PSR, STEPS, DSS, PACE, St. Teresa's Food Pantry, and the Pamplin Food Basket. So we hope that maybe between all of those meals, that was a huge loss for our citizens. They lost power, they lost their refrigerator, they may have lost, weeks or months of food supply, which, unfortunately, we're now seeing show up in our landfill. But we tried to help them as much as we could. Again, we could not have done this without the volunteers that stepped forward and spent hundreds of hours helping the County of Prince Edward support our citizens. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions about ICE. One last quick thing. I mentioned that mailer that the county is going to be sending out. So working with Letterpress Communications, we might see if some board members would like to be poster children on the I Got My Shot, Ask Me Why. And so if you are willing to be photographed, if you would put your name, and then the very bottom is, the question is, why did you take the vaccine? And Letterpress is going to help us design, we're going to identify citizen leaders around the county that are willing to help us with this marketing piece to try and encourage people to take the shot, but also boost our citizens' confidence in the safety of the vaccines. So if any member of the board is willing, if I can catch you at the end of the board meeting, take a quick picture and get you to fill out this form. We'll be working on this and trying to get it out in the next 10 days. And with that, Mr. Stanley, have I forgotten anything?
There's a comment I'd like to make, that we were talking about free meals and whatnot. I'd like to thank the entire board, particularly Patty. Ellery Sedgwick called me the other day and said, Jim, I'd like to bring the van by that you approved. And there was some dissension with Donald Hunter in the board meeting of CARES. And Patty decided, and I love it that you did it, not to take a vote on it there, but to take it to the entire board. And the entire board voted unanimously to do it. And when Ellery brought it by, it was packed with boxes of food that he had picked up in Richmond from the government, and couldn't have done it without the refrigerated van. And that's a lot of free food. So thank you, Patty.
Thank you. I'd like to make one comment at this point, because we're on this thing, about New Life Church across the bridge. New Life has really been diligent in providing food to citizens. And last Saturday morning, I guess it was about 10 minutes to 11, I received a phone call and say, Patty, this is such and such from New Life. I have like 20 boxes of food, the government packed boxes. Do you think that you can distribute them? I can be there in 15 minutes. I said, I'll be waiting on you. They showed up with about 45 boxes. And I mean, this is grade A, top of the line. First time we ever received meatballs. Had the best cheese you ever wanted to eat in your life. And I mean, serious, everything is grade A. And had apples and these great big containers of yogurt about this big. and I kid you not, it's some of the best yogurt I ever ate in my life. Potatoes, I mean, it's amazing what they pack in there. They normally run around 30 to 35 pounds a box. That's what's in there. So I call on my teenagers. Every time anybody call me, and I think I might need later on, I keep that number, I log it in, I save it. So I called on those teenagers and stuff. But I take my hat off to those 3 women. They unloaded the van, 2 cars by themselves. I mean, they just stacked it out there. That's what I said, short distance right there in the street. I said it'll be gone before you know it. And then I always go through Virginia Street and Bridge Street, because there's some seniors over there who last year explicitly expressed that they were hungry, that they really did not have food. And I didn't even know that people didn't have food. So every time, there's one lady in particular, I said, but this time I can't lift this box. I hope her son is somewhere nearby. He was down on the corner. I said, come on, young man, you need to go up to your mama's house. So he came up to my car and he got it out. But, you know, I have to take my hat off to them that they have been exemplary in, you know, providing food to Prince Edward County residents. So I'm really thankful for New Life.
Awesome.
Thank you, ma'am. Closed session.
We got Terry's report, then my report. We're ready.
On reading material, this will keep you awake. Lawyer's gotta keep it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
All right, I have put a summary page on the first. This is in reference to our fence ordinance, and just want to give you an update. Anyway, I've reviewed several things and have had discussions. Doug, we've had discussions, and Megan Clark. Anyway, just wanted to give you an update. There seems to be a continual confusion about a judge saying that our ordinance had problems. And so anyway, the first thing that I've attached is the September 12th, 2017 excerpts from the Board of Supervisors meeting. And you'll see that in there they had changed the ordinance from a criminal penalty to a civil penalty. And they'd had a public hearing, and that penalty had been discussed. So they were able to change that. And we are a fence-in locality. There's either a fence out or fence in, and we're a fence in, where basically your boundary line of your property is the fence. There's no requirement to have a certain height of fence or to build a fence, but actually the property line is that fence. Following that is the Farmville Herald article, when Jim Ennis was here, that explains the various, the 2005 ordinance, and, you know, explain basically what had happened on that September 12th, 2017 Board of Supervisors meeting. Following that is from our county code, the section chapter 10. If you'll turn in that packet to basically the containment of livestock. And boundary line, as I said, we're fenced in, so the boundary line is your fence. And it talks about unlawful for anybody to let their animals roam. And if they're notified that the animals are on another person's property, and if they continue to allow them to run, if they don't take care and get them back in, then they could be charged with a Class 4 misdemeanor. And in the Board of Supervisors minutes, you'll see that it was $250 was set for that. I also had, in this packet, I had a very lengthy conversation with Eric Lansing, who is the Assistant County Attorney for Appomattox. Of course, this was in 2019 when I had the discussion with him, but he took it all the way back to colonial times about the difference in fence in and fence out, and just had a wealth of knowledge. And so he sent me the next part of the packet that has the Code of Virginia and what it addresses as far as what a, lawful fence, and various parts of the Code of Virginia. And then after that are several examples of local ordinances. Now, some of them are far away, Arlington County, but there's Goochland in there, and Powhatan in there. Anyway, so basically, we're a fence-in area. If your livestock get out and you respond, if you don't respond, if you let them just run, then there could be the misdemeanor, Class 4 misdemeanor, and a fine of $250. So that is the status, and it is, it's in line with the state statutes, and is allowed, and various other entities have the same thing. Does anybody have any questions for me or any further research they'd like for me to do?
Well, of course. I said, of course.
Okay.
You just now made a statement that if you allow them to, what does that mean, Terry?
Well,
Does that mean that if I'm in Richmond and I get a phone call that my cows are out, that I immediately have to have someone get them up? Or does that mean as soon as I get home, as long as I leave right then and get them up, that I'm not liable?
well, also, as part of that, I guess the animal control officer does have discretion as to whether it's a violation or not. I can look and see exactly what the,
But we need something to where we know what his job is, this thing of allowing discretion, because in the past, according to what you just said, that has not happened. Because there's been lots of times that I know of that cattle have gotten up within 10 minutes that the same person got a ticket for it and paid more than $250. So are you saying that the county owes those people back money? At one time, it was even per animal, which was, from what I understand, was never in here. I can bring you the receipts if you need me to.
well, I don't know that we can go back. I'm not sure, that's, anyway, but I thought that I also had in here the job description for the animal control, but I may not have.
Even the article in the paper, I think Bobby made the point that if more or less that if you just let them run it, if you just didn't do anything about it, that you were held liable. But that's not what has happened in this county.
Well, what I'm here to report though is what is on what the ordinance says in the county. I mean, but you have to give, the animal control officer has to have some discretion. Because you couldn't address every situation that might occur.
Is it where we need to put an hour period, 24 hours to gather them up? Or something like that for him to go back?
If you want to go back, I can speak to this by all means, because this courtroom was a little bit different then, but I was standing right back there when I addressed him the first time. And Jim Wilk was sitting right up here, and he's the one that said that he thought that Jim Ennis ought to meet with the board of Prince Edward County Farm Bureau. And Jim Ennis met with, if I'm not mistaken, it was Jimmy Garnett, Bob Jenkins, Alton Folks, Josh Worley, Jim Ennis, and myself. If I'm not mistaken, those people were present. and they came out with a set of ideas, I guess is the correct thing to say, the ideas of what they thought should happen or should not. And Mr. Ennis at that particular time said that he would bring it back to the board and that they would discuss it, and then they, at a later date, that they would have a vote. It was brought back, and I'm not going to say whether it was discussed or not. I can't answer that because I was not in this room. I was standing right outside in the vestibule talking to someone else when the board decided to take a vote. So I don't know how much was discussed before or anything of the nature. I can't answer that. But I do know that it was absolutely discussed that if it was, you know, an hour or 2 hours or something of the nature, and none of that took place because Mr. Ennis said at that particular time that you couldn't give a time because you didn't know what the, you know, what it was or anything else. Some people had asked that if it was in the middle of the night, did you have at least until daylight to get them up so that you could see? There was people who asked, you know, if it was pouring down the rain, if you had a chance to move them to another place. There was all kinds of things that were, and I'm sure that if we look back, we can find those in the minutes somewhere as to what took place or whatever else. But I do know that he did meet with the board, and there were lots of ideas that came about, none of which are in this right here. I can tell you that.
Lou, you mentioned something about an hourly situation, and I certainly agree with that, because I believe, if my memory serves me right, that you had a complaint about your animals being out, but you weren't allowed to go on the property to retrieve them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. That was another thing that came out of that if you have a landowner adjoining you that has it posted or whatever else, or for any reason as far as that's concerned, that requires you to not go on the land, then you can't retrieve them. So that was another issue that came up with what do we do as far as if you have your land posted or whatever else, can I trespass, for lack of a better word, in order to retrieve my cattle that are trespassing? So that was another thing that came about.
But if there were an hourly thing, that may solve part of that. In other words, that landowner wouldn't let you trespass. If you had 12 hours or whatever it was to get your cattle, and you could trespass for that. I don't know. I'm not.
I think one of the difficulties, Mr. Chairman, is that a lot of times you don't see in the ordinances, Terry, if you looked at it, you don't see an hourly, because maybe the owner's in Richmond and he drives back the hour and a half, within 2 or 3 hours, he's got them rounded up and back where, you know, inside the fenced area. It's hard to determine, every situation is different.
Correct.
And if it's 1 a.m. and they're black Angus cows and you can't see them at night and you need to wait till daylight till you can get them up, you know, maybe 3 hours isn't going to work. I know, hate to put Chris in that spot, but having discretion, hopefully they know whether the farmer is trying to respond quickly, as quickly as they possibly can or not. And I would think that our officers, Errol and Chris, aren't going to charge somebody unless there's a blatant disregard for the law and their responsibility as livestock owners to take care of their animals. You know, and I can't imagine the Commonwealth Attorney prosecuting somebody who, you know, didn't, you know, responded quickly and came out and, you know, tried to, maybe they couldn't get them all, but they were trying to identify them. But it's hard to make it purely black and white. Terry, is that?
That's correct. I mean, it's when I, advise people about giving your executor powers, and people say, well, I want them to do this and this and this and this. And I said, you kind of bind their hands if you put too much restrictions on there. Somebody could be just disregarding their cows and not taking the initiative. And I think that the law officer is the one that has to decide that. I don't think we can put all those restrictions.
The downside, it puts him or her in a difficult spot sometimes between the landowner, adjacent landowner, and the livestock owner.
Right.
So the land posted is cows on the cattle on the other guy's property owner's land. So he can't go over there because the landowner told him, no, you can't come over. So you call it game warden. The game warden got to give him authority to. So that's what you got to do.
Or you possibly get a wrangler, right, Sarah? Sometimes we've had to bring in a wrangler to go pick up the cows, and
And who
I was
expects?
probably present at that meeting. I remember specifically on the time or the allowance of a time that there was and I think Mr. Jones is on the phone. There was a specific circumstance down on 307 where, somebody's cows got out and they were actually in the road. And I remember that was part of the discussion of, the animal control officer would not consider that a circumstance where the owner should wait an hour to go and retrieve his cows because there was some public safety.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the discretion of the animal control officer, be it that he writes the ticket or not, ultimately, it's going to be the judge who determines if the circumstances warrant the discretion, or not. And so the animal control officer is not the authority. He uses his or her best judgment, given the facts that they are presented. But ultimately, it'll be up to a judge to determine whether or not they, use their discretion properly.
Right.
At one time, and you correct me if I'm wrong, does our ordinance now, does the offending person, do they not have to be given warning, or I don't know what the word is?
No.
To cut, they do not.
I mean, it doesn't say
Because
anything in that particular ordinance.
At one time, they had to be told that they were out before.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not in that section. It may be covered in another section, but it's not in that fence section.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in our discussion here, thinking about this thing, in your case, many cases, this recent ice storm, everybody had fences down. And if you got cattle, what have you, on 6 different farms, you can't get around all of them in one time. Not saying that they're all gonna get out, but I know people that are still fixing fences right now, trying to get them where they are back in the lot where they're supposed to be.
or if you had electric fence and the power was out for 14 days.
We even asked in that particular meeting that there be an act of God clause in there where if it was a storm or whatever else, and Mr. Ennis said point blank no, and the board voted that way. It's in the, I mean, you can find it, folks. I'm not gonna tell you something's wrong. I've dealt with this for going on 7 years and spent thousands of dollars with this county fighting this, and it's still the same mess. Just like Terry's told you tonight. I mean, it's a mess. Now, I don't know what the answer is, but any landowner, if cows cross, not only cows, but if anything domesticated, if I'm not mistaken, you go on, it's anything crosses your property line, then you're liable. With no time to get them up, no nothing, and everyone keeps saying, well, it's up to the animal control officer. If that is true, then we've had some in the past that certainly have not done their job correctly, and you're welcome to put me on record as saying that. I've got the money to back it up. And the tickets also. And the judges have stood by what the ordinance said, not by common sense or whatever else. They even charge per animal and not per incident. It's in the courthouse, folks. So it's up to the board to decide, but I'm telling you, it's a mess. It's a mess. There have been cows out. I have pictures on my phone where people send me, I'm not gonna say daily, but all the time, of cows in the road saying, whose are these? What do we do? Whatever else. And if I know whose they are, then I call the people that own them and say, the cows are out, please get them up. I know of literally within the last week that there have been cows out 5 or 6 times very close to my place. I'm sure Doug has gotten phone calls about them, and it's what it is, but we've got to figure out something to fix the problem, because to my knowledge, I'm the only one that's gotten a ticket for this and paid thousands of dollars to the county for it. To my knowledge. I'm not saying no one else has. Well, that means that somebody's not doing their job if they're gonna give me a ticket every time, but everybody else has cows out and don't get a ticket. Is it personal? You doggone right it is.
Well, I think, the big thing is that whatever our ordinance is, it has to meet, it needs to mirror or be very close to the state code. That's our guideline, that's our roadmap. So we want to make sure that it falls within the purview of that, and that's what we have to make sure of.
Do we need to have Terry draft a new ordinance? Maybe Doug sit in, David?
I have no idea. I can just tell you that if any of you all have livestock and you have someone move in beside you that decides to do otherwise, they can use you as a whipping post with what we have right here, and the judge will honor it. Point blank.
I mean, there are other areas that have, that have very similar ordinances.
Is any specific as far as a window of time to retrieve them, the animal?
Not as far as the ordinance section that I have looked at.
What would help, in my opinion, and it's purely an opinion, what would help was that the offended landowner would have to be the one to call the offending landowner and say to him, her, them, whoever, there are animals on my property, please come get them. At which point they could then call animal control or whatever else and say, Mr. Gillum has been properly noticed that cattle are out if they're not up within X number of time, but that's just an opinion.
I think the difficulty as we grow and get more and more people here, people won't know whose cows are whose. In the olden days, you knew everybody down the road. You knew when you look at a cow whose cow that is. That as we get bigger and grow, that's going to be tougher and tougher. I don't know if we can tweak the language and talk about warning but again, I think it's.
David, something needs to be changed.
Yeah, but I don't know, like you said, if there are 25 head of cows out on 460, if we don't have somebody there in 30 minutes, then we need to be bringing a trailer in. 6 hours is not going to cut it. If it's the middle of the night down in Darlington Heights, you got plenty of time, it's not an issue.
I think that there's already.
It's hard to write an ordinance that meets all those
But
different
if I'm not
criteria.
mistaken, and Terry can correct me if wrong, there is already ordinance about cattle being in roadways, right-of-ways, or whatever else, so
There's
that's already
another-
taken care of.
That's another
That's
area.
another animal for what we're
Right.
talking about. This is purely about cattle being on somebody else's property. And what this ordinance allows it to do is for somebody that, if I don't like Lou Gillum, I'm gonna use the county as a whipping post against Lou Gillum because I don't like him. That's what it boils down to, folks.
Part of the problem here is you've got somebody that, it's a vendetta.
That's right.
And they're not reasonable. I called the individual involved in this, about a week ago. Being a very nice person and to give him the telephone number, to be vaccinated and so forth. Because I knew he was of age in that. He didn't want to talk about that. He just wanted to talk about, he was suing the board and so forth and so forth. Finally, I said, okay, I'm sorry. I said, I was trying to do you a favor here, but, please, if that's how you feel, sue away.
Well.
And if you got something like that, it's kind of hard to deal with.
It's an issue because I'm on the board of Farm Bureau. I literally get phone calls all the time, and I haul 75% of the cattle in this county at one time or another. So I pretty much know whose cattle is whose and where they are and whatever else. And so even the sheriff department calls me all the time and says, there are cows out on such and such a road, do you know whose they are? Well, that puts me in a tough situation. Number one, if I tell them whose it is, then I set that person up for getting a ticket. That's what I've done. I've set them up for getting a ticket. Number two, if I don't tell them whose they are and they're out, then it could be a potential problem. And on the other side, on being on Farm Bureau and on that board of, I want the cattle out of the road because that's an insurance company and we don't want them to get hit. By the same token, they're big on properties, right? So I mean, it's a tough situation any way you look at it. But we've made this to where everybody, when I sit on the board there so many times, I often hear do you know if so-and-so got a ticket for their cows being out? And my answer is, not that I know of. And they say, well, why didn't they? They've been out 4 days in a row, or they've been out 7 times this week, or something like that. And the question always is, why didn't they get a ticket? Because they know that I've paid plenty of them. So that's where I am. I'm not telling you all what to do, I'm just telling you that it's a mess.
Yeah, I mean, and there again, I mean, in our farming area, I mean, I went by the other day, there was a cow out, called Nelson, he knew whose cow it was, he called the owner, they came and got the cow out. So, in some areas, that's the way it works. I mean, we look and go, oh, that's so-and-so, because they've got this cow in this ear, and we just call the adjoining, we call the neighbor and say, your cow's out, and life goes on, so, but that's Cumberland County.
David's cows next to me, if one of them's out, I usually run it back up in the field, call
Right.
him, and, if he can't come, we'll run it back into the lot, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Well,
but
neighbor
you're a
does.
reasonable person.
Try to.
Terry, I'm just looking at Orange County. It says, any such owner or manager who, after being notified by an officer of the law, the animal's running large, permits such animal to continue to run at large, shall be deemed to have committed a Class 4 misdemeanor and be subject to the fine. And it goes on to say each animal is a separate violation. So, but what's being notified and allowing it to continue, that's up for interpretation,
That's gotta
right?
be fixed.
And that's orange, I'm reading,
Yeah,
but it's like
that's
most of these
correct.
is that 15 minutes, or is that 2 hours, or is that 6 hours? It's so, and again, right now it falls on the discretion ultimately of the judge, animal control officer and the judge, but, yeah, in some cases, 2 hours might be enough time, in other cases, like I said, if it's 10 o'clock at night, you get a call and it's you got 6 Black Angus in a 500-acre field, it may be hard to get them before daylight.
Something that won't be fixed tonight, but something for you all to think about that we'll bring up in another one. I'm not gonna hold you all tonight, but look at it and do some thinking, because it's, like I say, this week there have been not this week, last week, there were cows out everywhere. And according to our ordinance, the county ought to be getting rich.
Somebody should have got a ticket.
Lots of people should have got tickets. There have been cows, there are pictures on my phone of cows in the middle of the road, everywhere else, and no one even gets a citation, much less a ticket, so that's what I'm getting at.
I mean, it also is like somebody speeding, and a lot of people that speed don't get a ticket. I mean, it's, you can't
But this
get
is,
everyone.
but this is more of a complaint issue. I mean, speeding, they have to literally catch you. The animal control officer's not gonna ride around and look for cows out. He's gonna wait for somebody to call and say, so-and-so's cows. And there's another issue right there too. I'll just tell you all that I've been cited twice and paid tickets when the cows weren't a bit more mine than they are Lou Gillam's. And the county put them in my pasture and said because they went and drank out of my waterer, that made them mine. I'll just tell you exactly what was told in court.
Well, maybe
So-
we need the animal control officer, we need to ask him, what things do he take in consideration when he's summoned to a
Or
situation?
his opinion of what needs to happen.
Well, whatever, but the bottom line, what elements do he use in making his
How
decision?
can we empower that guy?
Yeah.
We'll ask him to come back and talk to us.
Or tell us the way he make his decision. I mean, what things do he take in consideration? I think that would give us more clarity. I think, I mean, we can sit here and talk all night, but
Right.
he the one that going to the situation. So I think we need to know his thought process and some of the things that he would be taking into consideration when he make a decision of that nature.
I got one more little related thing to think about, means we're thinking about doing this. My vehicles at work, I had the #1 man for Division of Motor Vehicles come tell me how to license my trucks and trailers because of weight issues. And finally, the third time he came back, he said, so we got it all here in this manual, but it comes down to the man that interprets the writing.
Absolutely.
That's where we need to do our homework.
Yeah. I think it would be more to hear from, I like to hear from the animal control officer and, how they would handle a situation like that.
So-
what elements they use.
I'll ask Doug to maybe talk to
Bring
Chris
Chris
and
back.
bring him in, but so we don't belabor this all night, what you got for us? Thank you, Terry. Is that all you have for us? Yes,
Give
ma'am.
you a little comment and make you feel. This guy says that he was out working during the storm, you know, he had stuff to do. He didn't have no power at his house, and he has that fence, electrical fence to keep the dogs there. He said he got two calls from the dog, I guess from the dog man, that said that the neighbors are calling saying your dog's out. He said, man, why would they even call? He said, we don't have electricity. I got an electric fence, so, you know, what? Said they over there at their house tearing up trash. He said, I get home, my dog sitting on the porch like, who they lying on? He said, he said, guess what? The animal control man came and said, ain't nothing I can do. They said, on your porch.
That's absolutely.
Said, but they were definitely. He said, did they do it? He said, I know they did. He said, but what you gonna do? The power line's down.
Doug,
Real quick, a few things I wanted to hit on. One, working with the CRC and Connects is a local telecommunications company. Jim Garrett he's actually won kind of a reverse auction for expansion of fiber into Prince Edward, parts of Cumberland, and Lunenburg counties. And originally, he was asking us to support a request for a grant and loan through the Tobacco Commission. And working with the Tobacco Commission, we're looking at, they have a revolving loan fund. He's looking at trying to get us, or our IDA, to apply for a loan. But he has an ambitious goal over the next 6 years to run fiber to every single house in Prince Edward. And he's got a significant amount of funding from the FCC. And, he'll be applying for some VETI grants to the state. And I'll be talking at the next IDA meeting about the potential for basically the county taking out a loan for him. According to the Tobacco Commission, they'd rather give the loan to the locality or the IDA for the locality rather than him specifically. So we'll have to look at the potential of doing that and how to tie it contractually together to make sure the county and the IDA are covered with that. But certainly we keep hearing about the need for broadband in this county. So this seems like a great idea, especially as a lot of federal and state money that's going to be on the table. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Can you get it inside the town limits, Stu?
Yeah, his plan is to run everything.
I have a speed of, I think, 6.
And you're pretty slow. You on CenturyLink?
Yeah, I'm in, yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem is the upload, I think, is 1.5. And I sent out something the other day, and it wouldn't go. It just jammed the whole system.
I think the
Did you
goal.
call for their newest box?
Have I what?
Call for the CenturyLink's newest box. It looks
Well,
like an
I
Alexa.
have talked to CenturyLink.
Did they give you one?
No.
They got a new box. It is powerful. It's
It
rounded.
doesn't up the speed. I mean, I have bought.
Yes, it does.
I bought a deal to, circulate it all over the house more, but it doesn't up the speed.
This thing is amazing.
Well, you got it in your neighborhood. I just wish we had it there.
Take a picture of it, the model number, and send it to
Me too.
the.
It's really, I mean, it's
I
really
almost hate to
nice.
mention it because Sarah's sitting back there saying, you got lightning speed.
The,
I got 1 point or 1.5 or something.
the county's received a boundary adjustment request for 84.04 plus or minus acre parcel located on Fairground Road. The request is to move into the town of Farmville. Property owners looking to rezone the property for residential development of what they call a high-end mobile home park for about 300 to 350 units. Mr. Love and I met with the applicants representing the town to talk about the process, potential impacts. We'll put it on a future board work session, but part of what we want, VDOT needs to look at it because Fairground Road needs a lot of work and the access for this property. So we'll be sending out some comment letters for that. Solid waste, the county's been experiencing higher than normal usage at the landfill. A lot of it had to do with the recent storm, but we pushed up against our 100-ton per day limit. We've had to shut down the acceptance of waste certain days. I know one day last week we had 56 tons by 8:30 in the morning. So we're working with Robert Hundley from Resource International and the Department of Environmental Equality for temporary and long-term permit modifications to accommodate our needs. In the meantime, we're having to limit the tonnage coming to the landfill, including turning trucks away, as we cannot knowingly exceed our permit limit. Courthouse parking lot, Terry and I have completed the contract. As Randy said, we've sent it out to the contractor and should have it back soon. Sandy River, we have a joint meeting set up with Nottaway and the towns of Crew, Burkeville, and Blackstone on March 17. And so I'll be there with Joe Hines and Justin to talk to them further to discuss the resolution we had sent to Nottaway, basically to allow us to start talking with those localities about any potential interest. Budget, the next budget meeting is full board. It's on the afternoon of the 16th, where I'll present, and at 5:30, the schools will do a presentation by Zoom. So we'll try to work that possibly here, so we can meet here and then roll right into that meeting. The only other thing I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Pride. She's going to be inducted into the Omicron Delta Kappa, the nation's premier honor society for leadership and service. That's what happened this coming Sunday.
Yes.
Congratulations, Dr.
Congratulations.
Pride.
Hey, Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Doug, can I ask you a question? The property the town wants to annex, is that within the city limits?
It's outside town limits, but inside the beltway, inside the bypass.
Can we have an island situation like that?
It's adjacent to land that's currently, if you go around the backside of the fairgrounds, the developer owns a piece that's in the town currently, and then a piece that's right outside town limits. So their goal is to develop both pieces together, but to do so, the town and county would have to agree to move that other piece into town limits. Now, obviously, the reason I think they want to is to get in-town water and sewer rates and tap fees. So there's a financial side for them. Obviously, we lose control, because once it moves into the town, you don't have the control of the zoning anymore. So, certainly something to think about as we move forward, and we're trying to look and see what the impacts are, both on the road system and with the school system. But it's pretty large development, so.
Yeah, already in Prince Edward County School, but to put that many trailers there would definitely increase.
Is that all for you, Doug?
Yes, sir.
At this point? I guess we're gonna go to closed session, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What page do we want to work at? Yes, ma'am. I'm going to just, yep. At this point, if you're on the phone, we're gonna cut you off because we're getting ready to go into closed session. I'm getting ready to do that. I move. Yeah, that's right. Now, you can stay on, Bobby. All right, I move the Prince Edward County Board of Supervisors convene in closed session for the consultation with legal counsel and a briefing by the county administrator pertaining to probable litigation with a pending determination by the Board of Supervisors of a specific real property in the county to be declared a public nuisance pursuant to the exemption provided for in section 2.2-3711A- parentheses 7 of the Code of Virginia. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Jerry. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty Cooper?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby?
Yeah.
Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, we're still here. Yeah, I muted you for just a minute, we're just checking things, Bobby.
Can I borrow your packet?
Absolutely, go to it.
need to monitor that.
Um,
Nobody else can call it.
I don't know if I've got
Take
it.
your time. I gotta have this. You need, Karen, I'll do this for you this time.
I don't have, Karen, do you have the backup that went with this item? I can't remember, Sarah, I had pictures and,
Yeah, you've got the closed session packet, Karen.
I think I gave them.
There may be, hold on. No, this is from earlier.
no,
She's gonna check her, yeah, there was a closed session
Yeah.
packet. She's
we're checking. So, give a little quick update. So, my onboarding, Sarah took me around the county and we looked at a number of issues in